Madam President and Senators, good morning. Peace is not something you wish for. It is something you make, something you are, something you do, and something you give away. Robert Fulghum. November 11, 1918, the armistice signaled the end of World War I between Germany and the Allies. And as we journey towards Remembrance Day and reflect on the many persons from around the world and our Bahamas who made the ultimate sacrifice to give us our way of life and the many freedoms we take for granted, we must ask ourselves, and each of you as senators, am I an advocate for peace? Psalm 119, verse 165 states, "Great peace have those who love your laws. Nothing can make them stumble." All around the world, and even at home in our Bahamas, there are places and homes that are war zones, both physically and mentally. Mother Teresa stated, "Peace and war begin at home." If we truly want peace in the world, let us begin by loving one another in our families. If we want to spread joy, we need for every family to have joy. I want to advocate for you as senators to be persons who are peaceful internally. There are too many people that have unresolved issues and personal storms that need to be worked out. You cannot give to others or to our world what you do not have for yourself. John 14 and 27 states, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." I challenge each of you to be an advocate to alleviate conditions and stresses that lead to some having a life of crime, hopelessness, and depression. Remember, your assignment is to do your best to make the world and our Bahamas better for others and to be a positive difference and to make a positive difference. Micah 6 and 8, I have adapted it a little bit, and I say this. "He has shown you, O senators, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God." Someone has said, conflict has far-reaching effects. Military might cannot solve conflicts, but the conditions that lead to the conflict must be resolved and eradicated. As you journey to reflect on Peace and Remembrance Day, be determined to model peace in your words, actions, and interactions today and every day. Strive to make our Bahamas and world better and not be ambivalent to what is occurring. Be God's instrument of peace and not of war this day and especially over the next 2 weeks. Romans 12 and 18 states, "If possible, as far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all." Let us pray. I have adapted the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi today for you. Lord, make our senators instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let them sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant to our senators not so much to seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Good morning, senators and colleagues. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of November, 2023, the Senate morning session. Adoption of minutes.
Madam President, I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Senate held on Thursday, 2nd November 2023 be adopted.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 2nd of November, 2023 be adopted. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The minutes of the 2nd of November, 2023 are hereby adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, swearing in of new senators, communications by the President. As always, heartfelt gratitude is extended to our revered chaplain, Reverend Carla Culmer, for your meditation this morning on peace. It's greatly appreciated as we enter into this debate today. Chair extends sincere condolences to Mrs. Carmen Gomez, Obi and Camille Gomez, and the entire Gomez family on the passing of Dr. Perry Gomez, a former member of Parliament and Minister of Health who transitioned on the 21st of October, 2023 at the age of 76. Dr. Gomez was an exceptional and exemplary Bahamian who dedicated 30 years of his life to public health. In particular, he is recognized globally for his work in HIV/AIDS research, and in addition to being the founder and director of the National HIV Program in the Bahamas. He is renowned for significantly reducing mother-to-child transmission of HIV and making life-saving medications more accessible, thereby decreasing the HIV transmission rate by 30%. He collaborated with the Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative, later known as the Clinton Health Access Initiative, to reduce the cost of HIV/AIDS medication to address this health challenge and make the treatment of HIV/AIDS more affordable within the Bahamas, whereby saving hundreds of lives. During an era when Bahamians were fearful, Dr. Gomez sensitized and educated Bahamians that it was okay to socialize with persons with HIV/AIDS. Indeed, this was a turning point. During an era when HIV/AIDS was a stigma and Bahamians were terrified of HIV/AIDS care, treatment, and prevention on how to socialize with someone with AIDS, Dr. Gomez, he educated and taught Bahamians the health protocols and brought critical awareness that it is okay to hug, care for, treat, shake hands, and socialize with persons with HIV/AIDS. Indeed, this was a critical point in our development as a nation, and we would be forever grateful to Dr. Perry Gomez for his compassion, wisdom, vision, and commitment in the face of a critical health crisis. We shall be forever grateful for his selfless work and for his dedication. The chair also extends condolences to Alana and Terrell Major and Pete Hutchinson on the passing of former Senator Alma Adams. She served with excellence as a senator, diplomat, teacher, and public servant as the founding chancellor of the Bahamas Al Ray Ramsey
Institute of Foreign Affairs. She was a stalwart counselor of the Progressive Liberal Party. More importantly, she served her God as a member of the St. Agnes Parish. Mrs. Adams served with dignity, grace, and honor. I will remember her as a peacemaker who sought to knit relationships and bring out the best in everyone. May the souls of Dr. Perry Gomez and Alma Adams rest in peace and rise in glory. The chair extends belated birthday greetings to Mrs. Irma Smith of Cordo Avenue, who turned 91, Beverly LaRoder, who turned 80, and our Governor General, Her Excellency Cynthia Mother Pratt, who also celebrated a birthday. The chair also extends congratulations to Ruby Ann Dowling on being sworn in as a Deputy Governor General on yesterday. Martin Luther once said, "To be a Christian without prayer is no more possible than to be alive without breathing." Undoubtedly, prayer is the cornerstone of one's relationship with God. We have in our gallery today a group called Women United in Prayer, who believe in the importance, the vital importance of prayer. They are prayer warriors, battleground soldiers in the army of the Lord. They fully understand that prayer is the key that unlocks all storehouses of God's infinite grace and power. Women United in Prayer is led by Dr. Brenda Harris Pinder. They comprise of women and men who have been praying at 5 a.m. every morning consecutively for 1,300 mornings. They pray for the children, our youth, this nation, this region, and the world. I met this group one evening whilst leaving the Senate chamber late and became curious and wonder, why were a group of women in Rawson Square? There wasn't a band, there wasn't a fanfare, there wasn't a tent, they weren't holding up placards, but they were fervent about whatever they were doing. And so being the curious, not nosy, but being the curious person that I am, I later approached Reverend Ashwood and asked her, what is going on here? It was then that I learned that they physically come and walk and occupy Rawson Square every last Tuesday, and they pray and they intercede specifically for senators, members of parliament, the staff of parliament, and this nation. To that I say, to God be the glory, great things he has done. And so I invited them to come to the Senate chamber. It is a pleasure and an honor to have these spiritual gems with us today in the gallery. As I introduce you, I invite you to please stand so that the nation can see you. Reverend Dr. Rosalind Ashwood, Senior Pastor of Stevens Baptist Church, Carmichael Road. She also serves as Advisor Director and a Region Leader for New Providence of Women United in Prayer. She is also an Administrative Assistant to the Bahamas Christian Council. I'm not sure if Dr. Harris is with us today. Ms. Harris? Okay, good. All right, moving right along. My former pastor and friend, Reverend Wilfred Adderley. He is the leader of the Bahamas Public Prayer Ministry. This group prays with the support of St. Stephen's Women United in Prayer, St. Stephen's Baptist Church, who are all intercessors in Rawson Square. Thank you. Evangelist Crystal Ferguson, Director and Regional Leader for Women United in Prayer. Thank you. Pastor Izetta Bain, Grand Bahama Women United in Prayer. Minister Patrice Deal, St. Stephen Baptist Church and Women United in Prayer. Prophetess Deorane Ferguson, Women United in Prayer and Broken Pieces Ministries. Deacon Eula Smith, St. Stephen's Baptist Church and Women United in Prayer. Sister Ruth Curtis, Women United in Prayer. Sister Eugene Smith, Women United in Prayer. Sister Valerie Smith, Women United in Prayer. Sister Anastasia Thompson, Women United in Prayer. Sister Sherry Nan, Women United in Prayer. Sister Janelle Brennan, Women United in Prayer. Sister Verna Gilbert, Regional Leader for Women United in Prayer. Sister Sherry Larimore, Prayer Coordinator, Bahamas Public Prayer Ministry. Sister Nesta Smith, Women United in Prayer. And last, but by no means least, Evangelist Shami Farrington, Austin, Director of Government Pillar, Women United in Prayer, and Executive Director of the Consumer Protection Agency. On behalf of the Senate body, I know I speak for all of us. We are grateful and we owe you a debt of gratitude for your prayers, love, concern, and you utilize love as an action word. May God bless each of you, your family, and your homes. May God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly. Laying of documents by ministers. Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions. Appointment of select committees. I'm going to return to that. I will return to this agenda item. Reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkias.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good morning, Madam President. Good morning to all senators. I would, firstly, Madam President, join you in welcoming the Women United in Prayer group. Welcome to the Senate, and to thank you for lifting up the nation in prayer, and you a very unique and creative method to render that public service, where you lift up the entire nation, including the leadership and all our citizens, and I encourage you to continue to keep the nation covered. Very, very, in this time when people like instant solutions and stickability may no longer be in style. It's good to hear that for 1,300 and something, 1,300 and more days consecutively, meaning in a row without stopping, you have gathered to lift the nation up, and I congratulate you and thank you for that and encourage you to keep on. I want to also join you, Madam President, in extending condolences again to the family of the late Michael Perry Gomez, former Member of Parliament, former Minister of Health, who was, as you said, a pioneer in the treatment of those individuals with HIV and AIDS, and working so hard to reduce the stigma, particularly in the early days, that surrounded that disease, and working again very hard here in the Bahamas to reduce the transmission of HIV from mother to child, and indeed being recognized in the Bahamas regionally and globally for the work that he did in that field. And what struck me, I had the pleasure of serving with Dr. Gomez in the House of Assembly and in the cabinet. And what stuck with me was how he committed his entire professional life to the provision of public health. And when you don't begrudge anybody the opportunity to make money, but when so many others were involved in the private sector and developing their private practices, Dr. Gomez devoted his entire professional career to the provision of public health. He was a fierce advocate for national health insurance. He was truly from the old school when it comes to the provision of health care to the public, and making sure that members of the Bahamian public, regardless of means or status or ability to pay, receive the very finest that he could offer and the system could offer. Likewise, Madam President, I want to join you in extending condolences to the family of late Ambassador Alma Adams, who, while I didn't have an opportunity to serve with her, she was a member of the Senate, served as ambassador, and as you said, lately as the first chancellor of the Al Ray Ramsey School of Foreign Affairs. She will be missed. Always very well presented, very professional, and you can tell from your interaction with her, she demanded excellence in everything, all walks. And so we extend the condolences to members of her family and assure them of our continued that they are in our thoughts and in our prayers. And I want to echo, Madam President, when you said Ms. Irma Smith of Cordova Avenue, right there between Blue Hill Road and Market Street, I remember. And so I say, I want to echo Mrs. Smith, if you're watching, happy birthday, and may you live to see and enjoy many more. Madam President, it is my pleasure my honor to rise to move second reading and committal of the Consumer Protection Bill, which is a part of the government's efforts to promote consumer protection, ensuring that consumers in our country are given maximum protection when they are spending their money, they get value for money, and indeed to promote, as a wider aim, to promote good business practice and ensure that consumers, when they feel aggrieved, they have recourse. They have somewhere that they can go, not only to complain, but to have their complaints taken, investigated, and where appropriate, have redress, Madam President. And so the presentation of this legislation is in keeping with the government's efforts to ensure that consumers' rights are protected and enhanced. Madam President, back in 1962, John F. Kennedy, President of the United States, proposed 4 basic rights of consumers. They are the right to safety, the right to be informed, the right to choose, the right to be heard. And later, the United Nations added 4 more: the right to redress, that is, the right to have your problem solved, the right to satisfaction of basic needs, the right to consumer education, and the right to a healthy environment. And so there are 8 basic rights of consumers recognized by the United Nations. And we are moving, Madam President, in the direction to ensure with this legislation that those 8 basic rights of consumers are respected and indeed enhanced. And today we're dealing with specifically a bill, long title, a bill for an act to make provision for greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Act 2006. So we are seeking to improve what we did back in 2006. We're speaking specifically about the Consumer Protection Commission today, but the work of the government in terms of consumer protection and the protection of consumer rights also extends to our efforts to enhance our capability to enforce the price control regulations. And we also are in the process of a comprehensive review of the Rent Control Act, Madam President. The view is to modernize the act and to be able to promote affordable shelter with protection for both tenants and property owners. And so specifically today, consumer protection, but when we're talking about the rights of consumers, we have several pieces of legislation and organs of the government that are responsible. Madam President, in terms of our actions in price control, we continue our recruitment of additional price inspectors, training of those inspectors. As you would recall, last year we had a temporary expansion of the items under price control in the area of food and pharmaceuticals. And whilst those measures were temporary and have since expired, during the time that expansion was in effect, we were able to better resource ourselves in terms of hiring additional inspectors both in the Providence and the Family Islands, training those inspectors where earlier this year we had all of the inspectors come to New Providence for 3 days of training, equip them with better resources in terms of technology, and generally enhance our ability to enforce the price control regulations. And that was part of our objective with that temporary expansion, bring some immediate relief, and in that period, beef up our capability to be able to enforce the regulations when we reverted to the original regulations. I can say, Madam President, that despite some early, I don't want to use the word acrimony, but some early back and forth, I think we have come to the position where largely we have buy-in by the business community and cooperation in what we're doing with price control, but our efforts continue. Yes. So, Madam President, this Consumer Protection Bill 2023, I will take a few moments to go through some of the main provisions of the bill, and then just speak generally about some of the other challenges that face consumers and how the government intends to address those, Madam President. And so, as you go through the bill, Section 2 of the Act deals with the definitions, and it expands some of the existing definitions. Section 3 sets out to whom the Act applies, and Section 4 deals with the continuation of the Consumer Commission. As has been said, we're repealing the 2006 Act. There was a Consumer Protection Commission established under that Act, and so we are continuing that Consumer Protection Commission. One of the main sections, Madam President, Section 5, deals with the function of the Consumer Protection Commission. And I will just read some of the functions for the benefit of the public. The functions of the Commission are, firstly, to advise the Minister generally in relation to consumers, to formulate and implement standards in relation to the consumer protection policy, to receive and investigate complaints made by consumers in relation to the acquisition of goods and services. So it's somewhere individuals can go and make complaints if they feel that they are aggrieved. If they went to the store and spent their money, they got shoddy goods, or they didn't get what they thought they were paying for. there's a place that they can go and complain. It's important, Madam President, because you have a barrier, so to speak. Someone goes and buys something, they say, well, okay, is it worth it going to court? Or do I just leave it alone? You know, the court, going to court and all that process might be a barrier to individuals, and you don't want consumers being disgruntled and just leaving it alone, and so we have somewhere where they can go free of charge. A fourth function is to carry on its own initiative such other investigations in relation to the availability of goods of any class or description as it thinks fit, and make a report and recommendations as it thinks fit to the minister. A very important provision, provision 5E, reads, it promotes the development of organizations formed for the protection of the consumer. So we have the Government Consumer Protection Commission, and they are charged with working with the public. Anyone who wants to form an organization whose mission is consumer protection, the Consumer Protection Commission is mandated to help with their development. Several other provisions, Madam President, including mediation, referring complaints to any other relevant body, informing complainants of any remedy available to them. They're charged with establishing a website to promote education and any other functions as the minister might assign to them from time to time. And so, Madam President, the main function is, firstly, I would group it into about three: receive complaints, investigate complaints, educate the public about their rights, and work with the community in developing who wish to develop organizations formed for the protection of the commission. And it's this type of collaboration with nonprofit and other NGOs, Madam President, that we embrace, because we understand that, you know, the government can never have all the resources necessary to do all of the education and all of the other activities to enhance consumer protection, and so we need to work with other stakeholders. Madam President, Section 6 of the bill allows the minister to give written directions as to the government's policy in relation to consumer protection. So the minister might say this is a government policy, and the Consumer Protection Commission is mandated to carry out the government's policy. Madam President, if we move, there are other provisions in terms of having to keep accounts, etc. When we get to the section about complaints and investigations, Madam President, Section 10 of the bill expands and allows consumers to make complaints outside of the Bahamas. So you don't have to be in the Bahamas to make a complaint. And also in Section 10 of the bill, Section 10, subsection 5, it allows a complainant with a disability who is unable to read or write. He might give his complaint orally, and the commissioner will have to take down the complaint, read it back to the individual to ensure that, you know, that's his complaint, and have them sign the complaint. And also, it allows for complaints to be given by virtual means, Madam President. And so a major part of their function is receiving complaints and investigations and conducting investigations. Madam President, I am advised that complaints to the Consumer Protection Commission since last year have almost tripled. In 2022, 52 complaints were made to the Commission, and as this year, the 31st of October 2023, 140 complaints have been made to the Consumer Protection Commission, with 27 complaints made in October alone. Madam President, the public is advised, the public might know, that the Consumer Protection Commission has moved to a new location on Tonic-Williams-Darling Highway, and that they have seen, I'm advised, an increase in the amount of walk-in complaints. They were immediately previously located in the Charlotte House as part of the government's initiative to ensure that the public understands the priority that the government gives to consumer protection. We decided that they would have a standalone location, the Consumer Protection Commission and the Price Control Commission. Price Control Commission previously shared space with the Ministry of Labor. Now they have a building at the Tonic Williams Darling Highway, expanded facilities, more individuals to take their complaints, and we see that the complaints are, individuals are beginning to use it. Individuals don't have to strictly walk in. Complaints have been received using walk-ins, the 24-hour hotline, email, calling into the office, and submitting complaints by the website, Madam President. And we intentionally, when we located the Consumer Protection Commission and the Price Control Commission / Rent Control in the same building, it is so that they can work hand in hand with each other. So sometimes you have cross-cutting complaints. If someone has a complaint about, buying an item, they didn't get what they wanted, or the item was inferior or shoddy, when they investigate, they might discover, for example, that there's a violation of the price control regulations, and so they're able to work together, Madam President. And so you see, Madam President, resources are being put into consumer protection. Section 11 of the bill, Madam President, provides that for an investigation. So when someone makes a complaint, it's investigated. The Consumer Protection Commission might, in its discretion, decide not to conduct an investigation, having received the complaint and checking on the facts as they were presented to them, might decide that no investigation is warranted. Section 14 of the bill gives the Consumer Commission the power to evidence, so they can call people before them in relation to an investigation and have them provide certain information to them. And it is Section 14, Madam President, that speaks to, again, if someone is summoned to provide evidence in front of the Commission, they might do so virtually. And this is a critical upgraded provision in the bill, Madam President, because of of course, the increased use of virtual meetings, et cetera. And, that is a very, very useful tool, time-saving, and as well allows people to give evidence if they're not located in New Providence. Madam President, if we move to Section 18 of the bill, it gives the Consumer Protection Commission the power to issue advisory notices. So, for example, if they identify a harmful practice, they can give an advisory to the public, and it reads, the Commission, where it becomes aware of certain practices which are harmful to consumers, shall issue advisory notice to warn consumers of the practices. And a notice given under that provision shall identify the harmful practice, identify any specific industry in which the harmful practice is occurring, and advise consumers who have experienced the harmful practice to report it to the Commission. Another, I believe, Madam President, crucial component of this bill is in Section 20. It allows for what we call the compulsory recall of goods. And sometimes we hear this in the United States. He says, well, a car was recalled, there's something faulty, and this was recalled, the next thing was recalled. This gives the Consumer Protection Commission the power to issue a recall of goods, Madam President. And so, the minister. And so it says, where a provider supplies goods on or after the commencement of its acts or going forward, and it appears to the minister that the goods are of a kind which will or may cause injury to any person that the provider has not taken, or that the provider has not taken satisfactory action to prevent the goods causing injury, then it gives the minister powers to first, they can recall the goods, they can advise the public the nature of the defect, circumstances in which the use of the goods is dangerous, and the procedures for disposing of the goods. And so, very important power in terms of being able to recall goods that might be harmful to the public. If we move to section 23, it calls for consultation be had in certain cases. And so where information might come to the minister that certain things, goods might be eligible for recall, then there is a provision where the minister might consult with any business or industry that that might be affected. Further down, Madam President, when we get to section 29, you might go in the store, buy an item, television, a microwave, whatever, a stereo, computer, and you think it's new, but it's what they call reconditioned or refurbish, right? And I mean, if you don't ask, they mightn't tell you, and even if you ask, they mightn't tell you. And so there's an obligation in this act to inform the consumer of reconditioned goods. So it's a person who offers or agrees to supply any goods that have been reconditioned, rebuilt, or remade, and bear the trademark of the original manufacturer or supplier shall apply a conspicuous notice to those goods stating clearly that the goods have been reconditioned, rebuilt, or remade. So it has to be stated that this, and so the customer is informed. And so it's not brand new, and it's not new brand. It's not brand. And so, the customer is aware, and it goes back to the original, basic rights of the consumer, the right to be informed. And so that is very, very important. So you go in the store and you see it's reconditioned, and so you can then make your judgment and adjust your expectations. Section 30 calls for the prices of the goods to be displayed. The provider shall not display goods for sale or offer to supply any services without displaying a price in relation to those goods or services, and then unless it's just an advertisement and not actually, it says unless, the only exception is that the display is designed and intended predominantly as a form as advertisement, or in the case of goods in an area which the provider's premises to which public does not ordinarily have access. So if it's in the warehouse, you don't need to put a price on it, and if it's just an ad. But you must have the price displayed. Yes. 33, section 33, Madam President, very important when it comes to measurement of the goods. It says the customer must be able, and I'll read it directly, 33 deals with measurements of goods. The consumer shall at all times be entitled to check the weight, volume, or other measurement of the goods sought to be purchased where the weight, volume, or other measurement of the goods materially affects the price thereof. So if you're selling something by the pound or by the foot or whatever, there must be, so you must have a scale, you must have a measuring tape, so that if you're buying stuff by measurement, there must be a provision there or means by which people can measure. And it's interesting, Madam President, part of this whole consumer protection regime is we have in place what we call the Bureau of Standards and Quality Assurance, BBSQ, Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality. And part of their mandate, in addition to, people might not know this, I know they do some advertisements now, they actually they're mandated to go into stores and make sure that the scales are working. So those scales that they have at the cash register, if you're buying fruits or sweet potato or whatever, and it's selling by the pound, or tomatoes or whatever, we have an agency that is responsible for going into those stores and checking to see that those scales are accurate. Now, from time to time, they say, Minister, we went in the store and people don't want us to check the scale and this and that. But I say, it's by law. And so the provision is there. So those scales have to be there, and periodically the Standards Bureau would check them. They do the same thing with gas pumps. They go and make sure that they test the pumps, make sure that, when you're saying a gallon is coming out, a gallon is indeed coming out. They check calibrations. And so that's very important, that, put something on the scale, it's reading accurately. Section 34, guarantee, says that customer must be given a receipt. When you purchase something, you must be given a receipt showing the name of the store, the date, the item that you purchased, and the price. So you must be given a receipt. And so consumers can demand a receipt. And Section 35 speaks to the right of a refund. And it says, where a customer purchases goods which, in accordance with Section 39, later on, are eligible for a refund, the provider must inform the customer that he is entitled to a refund and the circumstances in which the refund shall be granted. Again, informing the customer. And when you get a refund, this bill allows for you to get your refund in the same manner that you paid. If you paid in cash, you get your refund in cash. If you paid with your debit card, you send it back to your debit card or send it back to your credit card. That's the right instrument here. Section 39, Madam President. Moving on, return of materially defective goods. And it says, where a consumer is encouraged to acquire goods by the provider's declaration and inscription of the goods, and the customer subsequently discovers that these goods are defective, the material manner from the goods that intended to be purchased, the consumer may return the goods to the provider. So, if something is defective, you take it home, you find it's defective, you have the right to return it, and you get your refund. There's a provision for the return of different goods, Madam President, and it says where a consumer is encouraged to acquire goods by the provider's declaration and description of the goods, and the consumer subsequently discovers that there are material differences between the goods received and the goods that the consumer requested, the consumer may return the goods to the provider and receive a refund. So you think you're buying one thing and they give you the next thing, you can go and get your refund.
When does it not?
But then there's a provision only with minimum damage. So you open it and the box is open, then fine. But it says refunds on goods returned to provider shall only be made where the goods are returned to the provider in the condition purchased or with minimal damage resulting from reasonable exposure in the normal course of the consumer's use of the goods prior to the discovery of the material difference. So you bought something, you think you're buying something, you try it out, and that's not what you discover, that's not what you bought, then you can return it. You can't break it up and carry it back, but just, minimal damage in the course of business. Section 42, Madam President, provides against what they call misleading or deceptive conduct, false advertising, etc. Statements which deceive the customer as to his rights of a refund, statements or behavior which seek to or have the effect of intimidating the consumer to refrain from making a complaint against the provider, or any sort of misleading conduct, falsely accepting payment, etc. That those are prohibited under Section 42 of the Act. So very, very stringent provisions against misleading and deceptive conduct. Section 52 of the bill, Madam President, restricts things like pyramid selling and the obligation for businesses to state the full cost of goods and services. And, that's good news, I believe, to Bahamian consumers. Some of the processes have been streamlined. They're no longer useful to Bahamian consumers. So sections 29 and 30 have been repealed. These sections deal with approved and non-approved services and providers offering repair services. And as well, we'll be able to oversee distance selling and payment arrangements. And finally, Madam President, this bill, it speaks about the composition of the Consumer Commission and gives the minister the power to make necessary regulations to protect consumers effectively. And so the intent, Madam President, is that as we move on and, business practices develop, that we are able to come back and further enhance consumer protection under this legislation. Madam President, as stated by the parliamentary secretary in that other place in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, we're not waiting to deal with the small and disenfranchised next term. We are committed to dealing with their plight right now. We are committed to building a robust, inclusive, and fair economy, one where all Bahamians have an opportunity to thrive. And so I'm pleased, Madam President, as the Minister with the responsibility for the Consumer Protection Commission, I offer thanks to Chairman Walter Ferguson and the board, Executive Director Shami Frankton, who is here as well, along with the Women United in Prayer Group, and the staff for their efforts to educate and engage Bahamian consumers and ensure that their rights are both protected and respected. Madam President, I had the pleasure of attending a ceremony for the, I think it was the week before last, of the recently rebranded logo for the Consumer Protection Commission. And what they did was they had a competition amongst young students in high schools throughout the country. And what was good about that competition, Madam President, it was not just an art competition to design a logo, but as part of the exercise, students had to learn about the mission and the objectives of the Consumer Protection Commission, and so that was all part of the exercise. And when the logos were completed, then they were, you had a graphic artist just put some fine tuning on it. But the new logo was designed by a young student named Orlando Ferguson from Ellen Coakley Secondary School in Exuma. And I want, I'm not sure if he wrote it. But I congratulate him, Madam President. I think there was 143, if I recall correctly, 143 submissions. And so it was very, very, very exciting and a very, I think, creative way to get young people involved, Madam President, because an educated consumer is the best customer. Madam President, as we move forward, there are many, many challenges that continue to face our consumers. One of the foremost being inflation and the cost of living, Madam President. I think if you were to do a survey right now in the Bahamas, that's not only in the Bahamas, but in the Bahamas and around the world. You ask people what's on their mind, the cost of living. And so, whilst we are an importing country and the government has made some efforts in terms of the expanded price control list, dropping customs duties, speaking with shippers, et cetera, seeking to bring down the cost, many of our efforts will take some time to bear fruit. For example, increased agricultural production so that we're not importing as much. Getting more people involved in and more competition in the provision of goods and services, which tend to bring the prices down, Madam President. And so we continue in those efforts. And it's a global problem that's impacting the world, and it's impacting us in many ways. But we continue to work, Madam President. And I want to say before I conclude that our efforts in terms of price control, regulation, this consumer protection bill, what we'll be doing in terms of looking how we can enhance the Rent Control Act, are not any sort of, we don't want to promote any sort of adversarial relationship between the providers of goods and services and the regulators, but what we really want to promote is let's work together. let's work together, Madam President. Let's work together, because I tell you, I mean, our experience with the, I tell you, when we were talking with the Pharmaceutical Association and even the Retail Association, one thing they said to us is,
Including his brother?
one thing they said to us is, we can help you. We have some information that can help you in your enforcement when you go back to the original guidelines. So let's work together. maybe there's some ways that the government can bring some relief and ease, you know, the burden on the business. But let's talk. Let's continue this dialogue. It's not us against them, or that's not what we want. We don't want an us against them mentality, but how can we work together to improve the plight of consumers and to promote good business practice in the country, promote competition, promote satisfaction. If a customer is satisfied, they'll go back. If they feel they got shoddy treatment, they won't go. And then they'll talk about it. And then nowadays with social media, they may go live. And so, you know, it's in everybody's interest that we promote education, and sort of businesses protected as well from sort of frivolous complaints and you know, people who just want to make it bad. Businesses are protected as well. So,
Say one more time.
yeah, businesses are protected. We want to promote good business practice and protect business against frivolous and vexatious, what do you call it, in the court? Frivolous and vexatious complaints. Madam President, I end by quoting our Prime Minister when he says, "This bill is more than just legislation. It is a testament to our commitment to the Bahamian people. It is about ensuring our nation's prosperity and our people's well-being. It is about creating an economy that values and protects its consumers, and that would be a resilient, inclusive, and fair economy, Madam President. This bill is not just about rules and regulations. It is about people's lives, their rights, and their futures." And Madam President, I think that's a very, very appropriate way for me to say I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Act 2006. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides, for your contribution. Is there a seconder?
Second.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Eurecia Hepburn Forbes.
Madam President, before I get started in seconding this bill, please permit me to send condolences to the Gomez family, in particular to Ms. Camille Gomez-Jones on the passing of the Right Honorable Dr. Perry Gomez, CB and OBE. Madam President, I also wish to express condolences to Mr. Hilton McIntosh and Basil McIntosh on the passing of his son and wife and nephew and sister-in-law, respectively. And Madam President, to the family of former Senator Alma Adams, may all their souls rest in peace. Madam President, I join with you in welcoming these prayer warriors who took time out of their busy schedule to come and visit with us today. On top of them, praying for us unceasingly. So again, welcome to the Bahamas Public Prayer Ministry, Women United in Prayer, St. Stephen's Baptist Church members. This collaboration, Dr. Harris Pidner formed, and we thank God for their prayers and support. Madam President, I stand before you today to discuss a topic of utmost importance, the Consumer Protection Bill. Consumer protection is the practice of safeguarding buyers of goods and services and the public against unfair practices in the marketplace. It is a shield that protects consumers from fraudulent business practices, defective products, and dangerous goods and services. Madam President, we know that consumer protection measures are often established by law. These laws are intended to prevent businesses from engaging in fraud or specific unfair practices to gain an advantage over competitors or to mislead consumers. They play an important role in reliable market economy, helping to keep sellers honest and with no threat of unpleasant surprises. Consumer protection is linked to the idea of consumer rights, and these rights include the right to satisfaction of basic needs, the right to safety, the right to be informed, the right to choose, the right to be heard, the right to redress, the right to consumer education, and the right to a healthy environment. Madam President, this consumer protection bill that we are presenting is a comprehensive set of guidelines to protect our Bahamian citizens and to provide for consumers who are disadvantaged by exorbitant prices, substandard products, and the unscrupulous practices of merchants and service providers. Madam President, this legislation includes provision for the establishment of the Consumer Protection Commission, which has the power to investigate complaints and take action against businesses that violate consumer rights. It also outlines various consumer rights and obligations of businesses. This bill ensures that there's a forum for consumers to have their complaints addressed on a timely basis by the same Consumer Protection Commission. Madam President, the rights of consumers based on the Bahamas Consumer Protection Bill is a significant step towards ensuring fair trade practices and safeguarding the interests of consumers in the Bahamas. The Consumer Protection Bill of 2023 repeals and replaces the Consumer Protection Act of 2006. It aims to put in place laws that protect Bahamian consumers. This bill ensures that all businesses, regardless of their size, operate in a fair way. The Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Rave Davis, has described the bill as a modernized legislative framework to protect Bahamian consumers. The Prime Minister emphasized that the bill is particularly aimed at protecting the vulnerable among us. Madam President, a complainant with a disability is not disenfranchised or one who is unable to read or write. They may orally give their complaint to a member of staff of the Commission designated for this purpose, who shall record the complaint, read it to the complainant, and ensure the complainant understands the complaint and give him the signed complaint. We are working slowly but surely to ensure that we protect all of our citizens. This bill introduces new functions of the Consumer Protection Commission. It provides a framework for lodging consumer complaints and investigations. The Commission is empowered to protect consumers by setting out the obligation to recall certain goods and establishing voluntary recall protocols. The bill also protects Bahamians from pyramid schemes. This is a significant step towards ensuring that customers are not exploited by fraudulent practices. Madam President, for the sake of our viewing and listening audience, let me explain what a pyramid scheme is. They are scams where promoters claim they can turn a small investment into large profits within a short period of time. Participants make money solely by recruiting new participants to the program. The scheme gathers momentum until it crashes. Fraudsters behind these schemes typically go to great lengths to make their programs appear to be legitimate, multi-level marketing schemes. But the schemes eventually fall apart when it becomes impossible to recruit new participants, which can happen quickly. Madam President, a Ponzi scheme is similar to a pyramid scheme. The primary difference being that a Ponzi scheme involves the scheme's operators persuading other persons to invest sums of money with the scheme, purportedly involving an investment vehicle of some kind, in return for greater sum of money or payout. The scheme's operators normally claim that there's no risk to the initial sum invested. Madam President, however, there's no investment vehicle, and no investment product. It is important to note that pyramid schemes and Ponzi schemes are illegal because they prioritize recruitment over the selling of actual products or services. They promise large, quick returns, but inevitably fail, causing most members to lose all of their investments. Therefore, it's crucial to be cautious and do thorough research before participating in any financial programs or investments. Madam President, unfortunately, the Bahamas, according to the Tribune, has also been plagued by these schemes. There have been several pyramid schemes that have been deployed under names such as Firestarter, The Winning Team, Ujoma Family and Friends Share Plan, 242 Financial Partner, and everybody eats. These programs and persons who hosted them in their various forms carry the same fraudulent Ponzi and pyramid schemes that there are. Madam President, I ain't calling no names who is in charge of the schemes. I stand above board with the prayer warriors. Madam President, customers have also been shafted through pure greed. Could you imagine increasing the cost of items so you could supplement your spouse's business, formulating shady deals and downright swindling customers? Unfortunately, these have been some of the issues that consumers have been plagued with. And with this bill, we hope to curb some of these shady dealings. Madam President, in his contribution, the Prime Minister highlighted the importance of creating a fairer economy. He stated that everyone should play by the same rules, and those who could afford to contribute should do so. He emphasizes the need to break the cycles of generational poverty and hardship in communities by ensuring fair business practices, which will afford all of us these opportunities. Madam President, consumer protection laws vary greatly around the world, and the Bahamas Consumer Protection Bill is a significant step towards ensuring fair trade practices and safeguarding the interests of consumers in this country. When compared on average to all consumer protection legislations that I reviewed, there are 5 strong tenets that our bill has that I found that others do. 1, scope of protection. The Bahamas Consumer Protection Bill covers a wide range of consumer rights, including protection from pyramid schemes. This is similar to many other countries where consumer protection laws cover a broad spectrum of issues. 2, the Consumer Protection Commission. This bill introduces new functions of the Consumer Protection Commission. This is a common feature in many countries where a dedicated body or commission is responsible for enforcing consumer protection laws. 3, dispute resolution. The bill provides a framework for lodging customers' complaints and investigation. This is in line with global trends where most countries have mechanisms in place for dispute resolution. 4, consumer education. This bill emphasizes the importance of consumer education. This is a key aspect of consumer protection globally, with many countries having educational initiatives. 5, protection of vulnerable consumers. The bill is particularly aimed at protecting the vulnerable amongst us. This is a crucial aspect of consumer protection, and many countries have specific provisions to protect vulnerable consumers. So it is clear, Madam President, that the Bahamas Consumer Protection Bill aligns well with global trends in the consumer protection legislation. It provides comprehensive protection to consumers and ensures fair trade practices. But, Madam President, the Bahamas Consumer Protection Bill does not stop there. This legislation goes on to outline several types of misleading and deceptive conduct, giving more protection to us all. So in the bill, if you take time to read, you'll see 1, misleading the public as to the nature of your goods or services. This could involve making false claims about your product or service features, benefits, or performance. 2, false or misleading representation. This could include making deceptive claims about the origin of your product, claiming to offer a product or service at a false price, or printing false or misleading information on the product's packaging, or any form of advertisement that is false. And 3, non-delivery of goods or services on contracted date. This refers to a situation where a business fails to deliver a product or service by the agreed upon date. Madam President, everyone should take note that these examples align with the global standard for consumer protection. Misleading and deceptive conduct can have serious consequences for businesses, including penalties and damage to their reputation. But more importantly, Madam President, these type of practices hurt us as consumers. Madam President, accordingly, this new bill provides avenues for effective redress of complaints, and encourages the formation of consumer groups to represent consumer views in matters of interest and decision-making. Under this new bill, consumers can even make complaints while outside the Bahamas, and the list of who can make a complaint on behalf of the complainant has been expanded. Bahamians, in case you do not read this legislation, I want you to know where these offices are located. In New Providence, on Tonic, William, Darling Highway, next to Sunbergs. I can tell you exactly where it is. And their hotline number is 357-7898. I'll say it again. Their hotline number is 357-7898. In the gallery today is the Executive Director, Shami Farrington Austin, who was introduced by Madam President. So persons, you know who you could contact if you have an issue. On the Family Islands, Consumer Affairs offices are located in the Administrator's Office, and in Freeport, Grand Bahama, the Consumer Affairs Office is located in the Office of the Prime Minister. My good gentleman across from me could tell you the process for investigating a complaint on the Bahamas Consumer Protection Bill is as follows. 1, lodging the complaint. 2, investigation. 3, resolution. And most importantly, 4, confidentiality. All information provided during the complaint process will be treated as confidential. If a business is found to have violated the Bahamas Consumer Protection Bill, the Consumer Protection Commission has the authority to take action. The bill includes stringent provisions against misleading and deceptive conduct, harassment, and coercion. Failure to comply with these provisions will result in penalties. This encourages businesses to operate within the boundaries of the law and promotes a culture of accountability. Madam President, I recall reading in this chat group that when persons watch us, meaning senators, they don't know if we are speaking with any substance. I debated this person for a while, indicating that maybe besides 1 or 2 people, I wouldn't say from which side, when they rise to their feet, there might be no substance. However, in the dialogue, I gained an understanding of what the person was really saying. He wanted us to explain, explicitly state, how do what we discuss in here affects everybody out there? What do these bills that we are discussing have to do with him? So, Madam President, I want to be certain it is clear to consumers that the Consumer Protection Bill of 2023 is a comprehensive piece of legislation that aims to protect the rights of consumers in the Bahamas. It ensures fair trade practices, protects consumers from fraudulent business practices, and empowers the Consumer Protection Commission to take necessary actions to safeguard consumer rights. Consumer protection can also be asserted via non-governmental organizations and individuals as consumer activists. Entities that promote consumer protection include self-regulating business organizations and non-governmental organizations that advocate for consumer protection laws and help ensure their enforcement. Consumer protection is not just about laws and regulations. It's about ensuring fairness, promoting transparency, and fostering trust between consumers and businesses. It's about creating a marketplace where everyone plays by the rules, where businesses thrive by doing what is right, not what is easy. And most importantly, it's about empowering you, the consumer, because you have a right to be safe, informed, and heard. Madam President, I second and support this bill, and may God bless us, and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Michael, you?
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Dr. Eresia Hepburn Forbes, for your contribution. It has been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the function and powers of that commission and related matters, and repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Commission Act 2007. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michaela Bonnet Ellis.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to join with you in welcoming the Women United in prayer to the gallery this morning. I can honestly say that what we do in this place is not possible if we were not covered in prayer. And so I thank you for praying for us, and I ask that you continue to keep us covered in prayer as we go about the people's business. Madam President, I'd also like to join with you in repeating my condolences to the Gomez family, to the family of Miss Alma Adams, and a special happy birthday to those who are getting more than their 20. That is a remarkable achievement, and I hope that they have a wonderful, wonderful day today. Madam President, there's a change in the air. The weather is a little cooler, and the breeze has been blowing a little stronger. There's a change coming, and that change is unstoppable. We are now in the final quarter of 2023, and with less than 3 months left in the year, I invite the Bahamian public to engage in that process of self-reflection. There's always room for improvement, so we must be deliberate in our actions to bring out our best selves and to bring out the best in our community and to bring out the best in our Bahamas. Consumer protection is integral to any developed community. Individuals must be protected from exorbitant prices, substandard products, and the unscrupulous practice of merchants and service providers. Individuals need a forum to have their complaints addressed on a timely basis. Merchants and service providers must be held accountable to ensure that in their dealings with customers, they are fair and honest. The development of the internet has expanded consumer protection to the protection from unfair selling practices for goods and services via digital content. I think we all see the ads on Facebook. I particularly like the lazy workout one where the people are lying in bed getting a six-pack. Somebody needs to regulate them. Consumer protection is critical to building a healthy economy from the bottom up and the middle out. It is a question of basic fairness and justice. We are all consumers. Any person that provides us with a good or a service is a provider. So a provider is not just the food store that provides us with goods, but it is also the plumber and the carpenter that we engaged to build that shelf. As Senator Halkita said, the purpose of this act is to receive complaints, investigate complaints, resolve complaints, and to criminalize unfair practices. Like its predecessor, this consumer protection bill makes it unlawful for a person to engage in a business that is likely to mislead the public as to the nature and characteristics of the product. False or misleading representations about the nature of a good or service is a criminal offense. So, for example, if a service provider promised that they would be the bridge to the future, but by words and deeds demonstrated that they had no desire to allow or support the future's desire to hold senior leadership positions, that would be a misleading representation. If a service provider stated that they would disclose certain information, like, for example, the list of contracts entered into by the service provider, but failed to do so, that would be a misleading representation. if a service provider stated that they would reduce the cost of electricity, again, for example, but they didn't do that, that would be a misleading statement. If a service provider gives you little to no notice that they were making changes to a law that would require you, for example, to apply to receive a special license plate, but then a mere month later advised that they were no longer accepting applications for that special license plate that you suddenly needed, that would be an unfair practice. The government is the biggest service provider in the country, and we, the citizens and residents of the Bahamas, are the consumers. What legislation is going to protect us from an administration that routinely makes representations that they have no intention on fulfilling? The New Day administration promised the electorate that it would provide the services set out in the Blueprint for Change and the speeches from the throne. But we were misled to believe that this administration would be transparent and accountable. We were misled to believe that this administration was not about maintaining the old guard. Instead, we have learned that this administration is simply interested in new faces or new blood that will simply read off whatever is placed in their hands. We were misled into believing that it was a new day. And we were misled into believing that it was a new day. Where is our protection? And what recourse do we have? It is not enough to enable us to vote an administration out. We need to be able to hold their feet to the fire and promise them to produce the products and services that they advertise before we vote them out. This administration appears to be determined to blindside the private sector at every opportunity. This bill, by their own admission, puts additional protections in place in order to comply, in order to comply with these protections, providers must take certain steps in order to be in compliance. How hard is it to engage the business community, get their inputs on the feasibility of the proposed changes? I spoke to Toastmasters Club Carmichael last night, and I said to them that great leaders encourage persons to give them advice on the front end. Advice given before a decision has potential value, but advice given after a decision is made and the horse has left the gate is worthless. And that is why it is imperative for the government to humble itself and engage in legitimate consultation with stakeholders. When this administration fails to consult, they risk never benefiting from invaluable advice. Even if this administration wrongly feels that it does not need the input from the private sector, it ought to have engaged in an education campaign to educate providers about the upcoming changes so that providers can take the necessary steps to comply with the law so that they are in compliance on day one. Unlike this Davis administration, the business community requires structure and certainty. Employees must be paid on time. I once again renew my call for the administration to put its consultation practice, or rather their lack of consultation practice, together. This is 2023, and transparency and accountability are standard good governance practices around the world. I support legislation that strengthens the protection of consumers against unscrupulous businesses and provides them with an efficient and effective method of relief from those unscrupulous practices. But where is the legislation that will protect us from the PLP? Where is the legislation that will compel the Davis administration to give us the New Day administration that they promised? Open and transparent government contracts, eliminating all forms of discrimination, enhancing the ease of doing business, lower cost of living, the RISE program, 100% financing for residential renewable energy systems. But most importantly, their promise to commit to good governance and accountability. This administration continues to resist the principles of good governance, especially transparency and accountability, and it's inexplicable. They continue to mislead us as to the service that they will provide the Bahamian people. We were promised accountability, transparency, and fair practices. 2 years later, and they've misled us as to the service that they would provide the Bahamian people as the government of the Bahamas. What is our recourse? We need consumer protection from this Davis administration. They haven't provided the service of government as advertised. They have misled us as to the standard and quality of their service. Shouldn't they too be liable to summary conviction and to a fine not exceeding $5,000? Madam President, we deserve better. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, because I had enough of that.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator Honorable Kirkland Russell.
My, Madam President always admonish us to talk to the chair. And so I'm going to behave myself this morning.
Thank you, Senator Russell.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, colleagues. Please permit me, as usual, to thank Almighty God for all His bountiful blessings. I know I got double reason to behave this morning. I know my beautiful wife, Patrice, and the resilient people of Grand Bahama are watching me this morning. And so I want to say good morning to all. I can do that in a second. Stay there. We only that cycle campaign. I want to sincerely thank Women United in Prayer for being here with us this morning, but more importantly, for doing the work that they have been doing in this country. You know, the good soldier from Abaco and myself, I believe, would understand if you were in the midst of Hurricane Dorian, like we were, you would understand that when I tell you an island like Sweeten Ski was totally covered, you couldn't see a roof in Sweeten Ski during the passes of Dorian. But that key had some 20-something persons on that key who didn't leave. Not one person was injured. Not one person died. And when you experience what we experienced, you expect when the dust was cleared and the waters rolled back, you expected all dead. But when you hit the streets and you saw the Bahamian people walking up and down the street, yes, despaired, yes, traumatized, but alive, you know that it was only God and the good people of this country like you who stand in the gap and pray for this country that we were all able to be here today. So thank you very much. I too want to extend condolences to the Gomez and Adams family and all those throughout this country who are grieving for some loved one. To the business at hand. Madam President, it is said that the role of consumer policies should be the foundation of any progressive country sustainable development plan. And those policies ought to be built on three primary action plans. Plan a plan to end poverty. Plan 2, a plan to protect the environment. And Plan 3, a plan to ensure that prosperity and equal opportunities are available for all. Madam President, when you examine the most recent speech from the throne, which is intrinsically to the blueprint for change, one must conclude that this administration is keenly focused on the security of the Bahamian people. Why do I say so regarding this bill we are debating today? Well, I'll tell you why. I sincerely believe that by improving the negotiating parity between welfares and interests of the ordinary consumer and that of merchants, large or small, the principal measures outlined in this consumer protection bill seeks to establish equity, a redress mechanism that you can trust, and it promotes social justice and fairness for all. Madam President, I sincerely believe that the positive effects that will spring from this bill will ensure and will cause there to be a reduction, if not the eradication, of many long-standing problems among those who are financially defenseless in our marketplaces, such as those who are unemployed or underemployed, children, and those who are ill requiring special goods services, those with educational deficiencies, as well as those who rely on the country's social safety net systems, and no doubt, those persons living with disabilities. Madam President, the government recognizes the fact that consumer trust, both local and foreign, after all, we are living in a global world, so yes, consumer trust must be regarded as a critical component of our nation's long-term development plan and economic growth strategies. Therefore, addressing consumer protection now is a very timely tool necessary for establishing goals that are aimed at empowering the ordinary Bahamian to stand up for their rights and make informed and sustainable choices for their families. Madam President, this bill supports the government's effort in the fight to reduce the cost of living, to prevent unfair business practices, and promote a competitive business environment, enabling more Bahamians to have access to key industries. Prime Minister Davis said, we must make some major decisions about the kind of nation we want to be, which is a nation where every Bahamian can have a fair shot at success and happiness, where all can have a place to call their own, and eventually a Bahamas where the primary owners of the economy are Bahamians. Madam President, we know that not everyone shares the vision of this administration, and some will even push back against the forward-thinking changes we are bringing about in this country. But this government believes that what we want for the Bahamas and what the vast majority of Bahamian people out there want are one and the same. Madam President, when you look back through the annals of Bahamian, you will discover that the PLP or a PLP administration was the driving force behind the significant events that transformed the country in favor of ordinary Bahamians. It was the PLP that successfully led the Bahamian people through the quiet revolution. It was the PLP that built the effort, if you want me to say that. It was the PLP that successfully led the Bahamian people through the quiet revolution, the suffragette movement, the road to majority rule, independence, and the social revolution. And now, as we embark on this new journey in our history, I wish to publicly thank our hard-working ministers in the Senate. Minister Michael Alcides, who is responsible for this bill, along with the hard-working Attorney General and all those who work on this transformational piece of legislation that will help to support this government's commitment to introducing to the Bahamian people the final phase of the original revolutions. I'm talking about the economic revolution. Madam President, within the Consumer Protection Bill 2023 is the first of many progressive steps designed to reform the way we conduct business in the Bahamas. The PM, while speaking on the bill in the other place, opined that the government is in the midst of revamping the national investment and all investment promotional strategies, which will include proposed changes to improve the ease of doing business, a new look incentive scheme in targeted industries. Additionally, and most importantly, a focus will be placed on domestic investment and businesses so that Bahamian-owned businesses feel more included in the investment conversation. He went on to say that we believe in the principle of economic justice as a pathway to economic dignity and success for all Bahamians. Madam President, this bill is not a fix-all bill, and no bill can do that. What this bill seeks to do is to bring into existence modern laws and processes that establishes consumer rights and protections that are common in all advanced countries. When you review the guidelines outlined in the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development on the legitimate needs of consumers, the following general practice have traditionally been interpreted as the cornerstone of consumer rights worldwide. A, consumer access to essential goods and services. B, the protection of vulnerable and disadvantaged consumers. C, the protection of consumers from hazards and health and safety issues. D, the promotion and protection of economic interests and of consumers. E, consumers' access to adequate information, enabling them to make informed choices and according to individual wishes and need. Then there's consumer education and on the environment and social and economic consequences of their choice. G, the availability of effective consumer dispute policies that result in resolution and redress. H, freedom to form consumer and other relevant groups, organizations, inclusive of any opportunity for such organizations to present their views in decision-making processes that affect them. I, the promotion of sustainable consumption patterns. J, a level of protection for consumers using electronic commerce that is equal to other forms of commerce. And finally, K, the protection of consumers' privacy and the free flow of global information. Madam President, these are all expressed in the bill, thus bringing our nation in line with top international standards, something we should all be proud of. Madam President, for me, I really enjoyed reading part 5 of the bill, obligations of the, and particularly clause 27, talking about warranties, and subsection 1, which states, a provider shall issue express warranties in relation to his goods or services, whether the goods are new or used, and whether the services offered is the repair of any goods. Subsection 3 states, implied warranties in the absence of express warranties shall apply to the sale of all used goods and to the repair of all goods. Clause 4, subsection 4 states, in the absence of an express warranty, which shall be at the discretion of the provider, an implied warranty of 6 months on parts and labor shall, to the standard conditions of the warranties attached to the transaction. And then there is clause 28, warranties of the manufacturer, which state, any warranty given by manufacturer, whether local or foreign, and attached to any goods or services sold or provided in the Bahamas, shall be deemed to extend to the provider in the Bahamas, who shall be liable to the consumer in relation to the warranty. President, for far too long, Bahamians consumers had no straightforward pathway to hold local providers accountable for warranties, especially on imported products, even though the warranty was always in the box. You know, you could imagine a single mother or mother saving her money to go buy a washing machine. She get the washing machine home. After 2 weeks, the washing machine go bad. The warranty was in the box. You go back to the provider, he tell you, boy, the best I could do with you is to send somebody to your house to try to fix your washing machine. And you struggle for that washing machine until the only thing you could do with that washing machine is throw it away. That is what we were accustomed to in this country. This bill brings you in line, man, with advanced countries. And so, this is something that in this place, there should be absolutely no objections to. Because of this bill, there is an obligation of the provider to honor the terms of every warranty promised to the customer. Indeed, these are better days, and these are the days that we can say that the opportunities for the average and ordinary Bahamian to excel and move forward financially is here. Madam President, before I take my seat, I want to just, again, update this Honorable Senate. On Monday of next week, the government complex in Grand Bahama is scheduled to be officially opened and named. And the naming of that complex will be in honor of our fallen brother, the Honorable Obadiah Hercules Wiltshire. And so what I want to do while I'm on my feet is invite all of you, my colleagues, to come on down. You was down this weekend, eh? To come on, to come on down and celebrate this great event with us. You know, Minister Wiltshire would have been one of the cabinet ministers and a member of parliament at the time during the 2012-2017 administration that pushed very hard for that complex to be built there in 8 Mile Rock. 8 Mile Rock is the largest single community in the country. And so minister believed that, you know, this complex would be a good financial injection into those communities. And, you know, he didn't live to see the complex open, but the complex will bear his name, and I sincerely want to invite all of my colleagues to come on down to Grand Bahama and let's celebrate the naming of that complex, the Obadiah Hercules Wiltshire complex, on Monday. Madam President, I support the bill.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell, for your contribution. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam President.
Wait. You recognize. Terrell. Hannah.
Okay.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Tyrell Young.
Good morning, Madam President. And good morning and welcome to our guests in the gallery. And thank you for continuously praying for us. I think we all know that we all need prayers continuously, and sometime even when we, for some reason, might be busy and forget to pray, I know that you guys are there praying for us. So we still have prayers going up on a continuous basis for us, and we thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today in this session. Madam President, today, Madam President, I would just like to chime in on the Consumer Protection Bill. And this bill, 2023 bill, and the amendments that are to be made in this bill, Madam President, I feel as though is well needed. I think it's a comprehensive amendment to the bill, and I think that our colleagues opposite will benefit from this bill, and they will see the necessity of the changes herein. Every day, Madam President, we hear the cries of how the cost of living here in the Bahamas is increasing, never ending. Not only from Bahamians, Madam President, but also tourists as well. The cost of living in the Bahamas is said to be on average 22.4% higher than the United States and other countries around the world. The estimated average on the monthly cost of living for a family of just four is over $4,900+ per month, and that's not including rent or mortgage. Madam President, a single person monthly cost of living here in the Bahamas is some $1,300 to $1,400. That's not including rent as well. Seeing that most Bahamian salaries are only minimum wage, this definitely, Madam President, is frightening. So it's a work in progress. But Madam President, as most goods are imported into the Bahamas, When products hit the shelves of our stores, prices are marked up tremendously at times. We experience this in food stores, clothing stores, furniture stores, etc. And this is blamed on inflation. But most times, Madam President, the cost of some items are ridiculously in stores are ridiculously higher. At times, consumers are not receiving the best quality for their money. We must do what we can to protect our people. As we all know, the world is changing, and getting left behind is definitely not an option for the Bahamas. We need to find ways to continue to help and keep food on the table for our families, educating our people on their rights as a consumer and providing them with the means to being protected from price gouging is a must. We all know the slogan, "Consumer Beware." Madam President, with this bill, no more will the consumer buy at their own risk. That will be a thing of the past. Definitely. As they will now be equipped with the knowledge of what they can do if they experience bad business. As our good leader of the Senate said earlier, Senator Alcides, we all want a reliable market economy where sellers are honest and there is right to safety, right to information, right to choose, right to consumer education, and right to proper presentation if needed, representation if needed. These are just some of the reasons why this government thought the need for and the importance of the Consumer Protection Bill 2023. Madam President, this bill is crucial. This bill is critical and very important as it protects consumers from overpricing substandard products and services. It gives them a voice and protects them from being bullied into unfair and dishonest business practices. With this bill, they now have a forum where their complaints may be addressed. This bill shall apply to all persons involved in trade or business through the purchasing and selling of goods or services. Madam President, with this bill, consumers are protected from 1, being charged a higher price on items than what was disclosed to them at the time of purchase. 2, harassment into purchasing of goods or service. This bill gives consumers the rights to 1, receive refund in the same manner of payment. 2, protect from fraud or specified unfair practices in the business forum. Large complaints or investigations. Madam President, with this bill, store owners will have to honor warranties, whether local or foreign. 2, disclose to consumers that the goods are reconditioned or repaired, rebuilt, or remade. Provide the price of goods or services. And 4, inform of certain details of the goods, including origin, instructions, and use and installation. Madam President, with this bill, this government wants to ensure that consumers stay protected, is informed, not fooled, but most importantly, know their rights. My fellow colleagues, the passing of this bill is crucial as we seek to bring better protection for consumers, allowing them to make the best choices based on their interests. Also, allowing businesses purchasing products to not be subject to markup in cost of products. This bill will make markets work for both businesses and consumers, Madam President. Today, as I stand in this great Senate. I am in support of this bill, as the protection of consumers means the protection of us all. Like our good member that we have lost recently said, we are one love, one Bahamas. So, Madam President, in the words of John McKay, I quote, "For us, our most important stakeholders are not our stakeholders. It is our customers. We are in business to serve the needs and desires of our core customer base." Madam President, I think if you look around our country and around the world today, you will realize, and as a local businessman myself, I can tell you one of the key factors of surviving business is customer service. Your stakeholders are definitely not your main focus. Your customer base is always your main focus. Satisfying those customers are always and will always be your main focus. As I think that was, I think Senator Barnett said earlier, that we are here to serve our customers, and your referrals, most of your business referrals come from prior customers. So the better you treat your customers, the more referrals you get, and that's just common business practice and knowledge. And also, the way you treat your customers, like my good colleague is saying, is you stay focused on who? On your customers. And who are we here to protect today? We are here to protect our customers. Who are our customers? The Bahamian people. You understand? So, Madam President, as I conclude, let us remember that we are ensuring that the consumers receive better protection, better quality of goods for their money. This bill supports every Bahamian, including you and I. We must continue to promote positive change for real Bahamas. In the words of Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, with this bill, we are making those necessary and needed amendments to the law to drive healthy competition and to protect Bahamian consumers and promote customer satisfaction. Madam President, I thank you and support this bill.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Tyrell Young. As many,
Thank you, Madam
the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramming.
Thank you, Madam President, and it's good to be with you again following the break. And it's good to see all of our senators are doing well. I stand in support of all the condolences shared to Senator Gomez and to everyone that is suffering loss at this time. This consumer protection bill is a significant one, and I take from the note that Senator Terrell ended on as it relates to the government. The consumer is every Bahamian, indeed every voter in that class. I'll speak to that a bit later on, but this bill is akin to many other acts that share in this process called consumer protection. One of them is also the Price Control Act. We all know that people don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. There is a very unique and minority class that will do what is expected, even when there are not eyes on them. And you'll find that majority of them, apart from good mother and father brought-upsy, have a divine respect and know that there is always someone up above looking down in tender love, even if nobody else see, and that guides them even in the back rooms, in the dark places, to more often than not do the right thing. Unfortunately, in business, even for those with the good intent, they say that money can and power can bring out the worst in anyone, Madam President. And you can find some may come intent to provide a service and just want to make a good living. And when they get bit by that green bug called the Grinch, they find themselves wanting to make a killing. So as any good parent, father, legislator, government have to do, there must be systems in place to not only protect the consumers, but to protect them businesses from themselves. And so you will see the evolution of the Consumer Protection Act, which is continually going on now. And as Senator Alcides would articulate, it's not perfect. Because as we well know, every hurdle you put up for somebody, they can find another way around it. Well, it's not sound like I'm talking about the EUA. Because that's the nature of business. It's the nature of Silicon Valley. It's the nature of everything. That's why we have antiviruses that have to be constantly renewed. And as good as this is, someone, as soon as this is passed already, going to find some way to get around it. So that should never stop us from making progress. We have a problem in our country that there are many laws on the books, but because of our culture, which has seemed to be sadly so identified and characterized by its lack of enforcement, has made many laws that are actually there irrelevant to the hearts and the minds of the Bahamian people until something major happens. And then they want a stronger something from something that was good enough that they never knew about or care about because they never had faith in it to try it. If you listen to the statistics that were said by Senator Alcides as to the rate of complaints of consumers, by Lord, ain't no way where we should have easily over 200,000 adults who spend their money to buy things, and you're getting 50 people complaining, 100 people complaining. And that speaks to where we are now. A lot of persons just get so frustrated, they feel there's no way to turn, they don't search where there's no way to turn, or they feel that the bureaucracy moves so slow that it's costing them more to get redress on something, and it's better to say, you know what, leave it alone. And that's how a lot of criminals in business get away with it. Criminals in land, criminals in business. I've heard them said, Madam President, that, you know what, my dollar's so long, you may have the right, but I could outrun you in court. When your couple dollars dry up, my lunch money is Privy Council money. So the fight for justice is a very important thing for everyone. When we look at protection, it's just amazing, and it causes me to reflect back on my experience, and some of us who have experience in the transportation industry or the heavy equipment industry, or even those who have experience in industries that are heavy on IT and electrical equipments, would have found that even now laws that should have been there to protect us have not been over the years. I remember some of the leaders of the Dealers Association was calling the price control antiquated. And it needs to go because, you see, we need to move at the speed of light. And just listen to their justification. You know, because Bahamian people now go on Amazon online buying parts and cars, and they can check online, see how much a car is, and go getting the deals themselves. So their excuse is, take the control off us, because Bahamians finding other ways to get their stuff out of us, and they fail to realize, and they were complaining because on a new car it's like 25% markup. On a used car it's 15% markup on a used car for a dealer. On parts there's a 75% markup. I'm going someplace with it. 75% markup they could put on parts. And I see my good friend the Russell say, woo, right? But let me show you how that woo is like it's long high, doesn't it? But we all know from experience, Madam President, thanks to Google and travel and everything else, and I won't name a dealership name, but Lord help you if you get a car from an exclusive dealership here, and you need to buy a part, and you happen to go to Miami to another dealership and buy the very same part and figure out what you're paying. You are paying in many instances 300, 400, and in some instances 600% above what another dealer is selling this part, and you're a dealer. Not only that, I hear them complaining about the price control and the 75% thing. Everybody know when they check it and stuff, you're getting raped at the counter. Economic rape. And these dealers, as an example, and this goes on to many other facets of business which this bill would speak to. You know, economic rape. Did that stimulate your sexual thoughts? I thought we were talking economics, economic rape. All right? Because they are blatantly taking advantage of persons who they have a duty of care, to take care of. How does a dealer have a duty? If you're an exclusive dealer for a vehicle, and especially if someone is buying anyone, but especially if somebody is buying that vehicle for commercial purposes, you have a responsibility to keep in stock all the parts needed to service the fleet that you have exclusive dealership for. And even when, say for instance, that particular model goes obsolete, and I'm going back to memory way back, research way back then, you still have, I think it's a period of 10 years to still keep those parts in stock. But you know how we suffer? Because they call it slow moving parts. So if the head on your vehicle goes, Madam President, this is a vehicle that you make your livelihood. They sell it as a commercial vehicle, and it goes through for even if it's just your private car. Oh, we don't have that part in stock. That could have to be special order. And when we special order it, apart from what it would have been like if it was in stock, you got to spend bourgeois money for them to special order something they should keep kept in stock because they have a duty of care to those who purchase the vehicles from them. I'm talking about dealers, not necessarily the used car person who's selling car. You know what you're dealing with. And so by the time they take that 3 months to bring that part in that they should have in stock, you don't lose thousands of dollars of income because the dealer who is not keeping the part in stock, and I'm not even getting to the point. I'll use the example of my vehicle. I wouldn't say what the model is. I went the side mirror of my model, my vehicle got hit. I went to the dealer for the part. They said the mirror cost $1,200. Yeah, I go on Amazon, got the exact same mirror for $220. Shipment, duty, everything else, so on and so forth. It was an aftermarket part. Actually, it wasn't. Actually, it wasn't. And when I went to the dealer there, when I checked the dealer on it, the dealer on it was about 150 more than what the Amazon one was. But it was actually the genuine part. So consumer protection goes a very, very long way in balancing these things. And a lot of people don't know that you have a legal right that the dealer is supposed to keep the parts for this vehicle that they're selling you in this country. They don't know that, so people get away with a whole lot of things because people don't know their right or don't want to press the issue because at the end of the day they feel it's going to cost them too much. These kind of things is very important, and I don't care if we move it an inch or move it a mile, it must progressively be kept updated. Because, you know, people say you can't legislate morality. What do you think this is? Every law is moral. You're trying to stop this person from wreaking havoc and unfairly disenfranchising their people. When we look at this consumer protection bill as just raised, just spoke as related to government and the public being a part of the same as provider and consumer. And that is very, very true. The only thing about it is we paying the provider who providing us the service, but they charging us for, but we paying them. So we paying the government to own a BPL who turn around and charging us and beating us up for something we all own directly. I would like to see, and I would like to hope that, for instance, this also have avenues in which it could compel the government. And we know what the government is. There's always been a government from 1970 to now to protect the interests of consumers, because when people shut out and blow open people's TV, when people losing whole, I remember a particular store off Burnett Road lost all their ice cream, meltdown. When the customers whom you're supposed to be buying reliable service for must put in their own redundancy against the same supplier just to make sure, because of the unreliability, that they don't suffer loss. When people suffer traumatic loss, when I'm hearing on videos people speaking positively about the Bahamas, and then the big butt come in, but the lights can't come off, so they come on, you can't, it ain't reliable, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and then they have problems with the investment in the Bahamas, because what is happening to us right now for the consumer, electricity is one of those common things that actually impact the cost of business and the cost of operating your home, and is a major factor across the board. So what rights does the consumer have? And this has been a cry for years. When BPL blowed your new TV and blowed all the stuff in your house and everything else and so on and so forth, and you go to complain to them, you gotta go to the villain to ask the villain to pay me for what he did. You gotta go to the culprit and go to BPL and say, all right, BPL, you do this for me, you owe me money. They say, okay, we can make a decision on ourselves. How is that fair to a consumer? We hadn't even reached all the current rate of electricity and all that other stuff that we all are aware of. When you go to the Princess Margaret Hospital and you see the chronic habit of being out of medication, it's sad enough that you're now paying extra on your medication because of the full amount of VAT now being on medications. You go, you stand in the line. You go through all that. You reach to the window, no supply. All this impact the consumer, but this ain't just money now. This people's health. When cancer patients are in there and the chemo therapy isn't available. The nurse is there, the equipment there, but the therapy isn't available. That's not only impacting the wallet, that's impacting people's lives. When in some instances, I don't know how much it would improve, that the private NGO dialysis machine exceed that of what is offered by the government. We got to ask ourselves, because when we do these research and we have the research on what's going on with us people of African descent, with our committable and non-committable deeds and our predisposition to certain things, we should know that we need, and I'm amazed at how many people, Madam President, are on dialysis. A man boat broke down on the side of my house, and I realized it was late in the night, so I came and give him lights and everything else, help him out, whatever else. It was too late for him he felt it was too late to knock back on my door, return the stuff. I led him to help him. And some of them asked, he's a nice guy. I worried about it when I woke up and I didn't see them anywhere. Then he sent me a message, you know what? I had passed, but I didn't want to knock on the door. Can I come? When he finally came, we just had a little chat. Big man, former police officer. Learning all this just from the communication, he said, oh, yeah, I brought this stuff. I just wanted to make sure you're home. And he broke down in tears, Madam President, when he started to say, he reminded me of a man who used to be catching fish to go with him and stuff, who I knew. He said, he passed and everything else. And then he said, I'm on dialysis. And I'm cutting it short. I am on kidney dialysis. And he said that in connection that one of his favorite pastimes is going fishing, and how that limit him from being able to go fishing and everything else. And he started saying, I have to do dialysis, and so on and so on. And he started breaking down tearing. I said, you have my number now. Man, just message me, and if I'm free, I'll go on the boat with you. These things don't just impact the pocket. These impact the lives of people. Right now, the Bahamas has been in many different indices because, as the Minister of Economic Affairs would know, that there's different ways of calculating what I'm about to say. But we've ranged from as high as 4 to 16 and being the most expensive country in the world. And a lot of it is not out of necessity. It's out of abuse, neglect, bad management, bad government, or people gouging people across the board. And there must be some control in place for the mayhem and the problems that is going on. This is serious stuff. This bill is excellent. This is serious stuff. What is excellent is enforcement. Yes. This is very, very serious stuff. And though I do believe that, notwithstanding who may be the seller and the vendor, that all should be consulted. Oh, and by the way, I was at the Chamber of Commerce Expo on the weekend, and I was told that after that point they weren't consulted on the bill. Attorney General. Yeah, said they weren't consulted on the bill. This one, yeah. Yes, this one. Yeah. And I said, really? And then she said, because they started to reach out to some people, say, you know what, but the bill done. I said, the bill is on the Senate. We're going to be debating this on Wednesday in the Senate. She said, no, they weren't consulted. We need to tighten up on this, because whoever is the left or right, I think left and right shouldn't need to be going on like this all the time. Or maybe you all need to take video and fingerprints and stand up and prove who ain't saying what. I'm simply saying what's being told to me. When I look at this consumer protection bill, this causes me to look at the situation now again with even NHI. And it was mentioned with Dr. Gomez, and again, I applaud his work and for all those seeing it through and for each administration in their own way, progressing NHI. That is very, very positive. But yet you're hearing now there's a struggle in NHI, just consumer protection, where persons can come and they're still not going to be admitted into the program until next year. So somewhere along the line, something is being wrong, and then that is impacting people's health. You go to road traffic, you remember back in the day, Madam President, when you used to go to road traffic and the line used to be around the building? You all remember that? You weren't that old, you weren't that young. You know, and then somebody decided, a common sense thing, come on your birthday. Why everybody in the whole Commonwealth of the Bahamas, one time a year, showing up road traffic, stand up in the line in the rain, dropping the children there at 6 a.m. in the morning, rotating them just to get a line to fill in a driver's license. What I'm simply saying, a lot of things in our country is not that hard to fix. It's about a lot of common sense things, and that's why I appreciate one of the bills that was brought here to allow the AG office of those to retroactively go and look at bills and make adjustments to errors and other different type things, because we need to make sure that the bureaucracy is more fluid, because that too is bad customer service. When you can go to courts and because of the lack of swift justice, because of the delays and the processes and the issues relating to either attorney or even equipment or stenographers, all this impact people, all this impact people's lives. Every aspect of this is very, very critical to what we do and how we do it and everything else. And price control is very, very important. I think we just heard again the Bishop speaking about with the price controls and Leish Boyd, and he too was singing the same song that we get criticized for, to remove the VAT again of the breadbasket items. We heard a statement that when the U.S. sneezes, the Bahamas catch a cold. But the U.S. is going through inflationary things, and a lot of the decisions that are being made in this country is compounding the inflation. I'll give you one quick example. I paid over $2,000 wipe off my light bill in August. I sit back, me, my wife, and my daughter. I don't be home that much. They don't be home. I look September 15, I get $600 something. No, almost $7. AC on. You think I leave the AC on? Hey? No, literally. Hey, every light in my house. That's the first time I realized I had that many lights. 150 light bulbs in my house. All right? years back, changed to LED, and I saw my light bill drop. Everything is energy efficient. I don't be home, we be home to sleep. All right, right now, I had to send an international driver's license off to a kid. It used to be $50, you know what it is now? $100. Right now, I got a hitch on the back of my car. We said customer service and everything else. Fishing is one of our major industry and one of the few that is still Bahamian dominated. And now, I got to get special license and pay extra money and go to special training and everything else to tow my boat. To tow my boat fishing. I said fishing. To haul the trailer. We have a lot of things happening across the board. Sometimes you go to these things, Madam President, you find the fees that are increasing. But when I look at it, the cost of fishing license, I think that changed, did it? The boats. Yeah. Well, when these guys hitting with the price of fuel and you see the crying they have to do, whether it is to fill their boat and the cost factor of it. What I'm simply saying is we're impacted by things all around. But there are some people amongst us who goes to the stream. So anything that we can do to help overall is very, very important. But we must educate our people as to what their rights are in this country and hold these people to account. You know, but I had to notice when I looked at the sections of this particular bill, it actually reads like a good campaign finance reform, you know, because it seemed to speak. I know the Blueprint for Change spoke about campaign finance reform, and it speaks to all kind of things, but compulsorily call for in this particular bill that causes you to wonder, boy, if these things was available for us, we'd be doing good. It's talking about not misleading and deceptive conduct, misleading public as to the nature of your goods and services, falsely accepting payments, falsely misleading representation, false failure to deliver on goods and service and the time, advertisement, harassment, pyramid schemes. I looked at all of them and say, wow, if we turn this into election reform law, I think it's going to clean up a lot of our election, because basically this seemed to be what some of the bad stuff in the election that has been pumping the airs of consumer, because when you sit there and say, listen here, within the first 100 days, I can 500 days later. Well, you see, we need to be very, very cautious on all that we do and all that we say. I do commend the government on every step that we take forward to protect consumers without unduly restricting fair business, because I believe we're all capitalists. But we need to stop those who are abusers from becoming abusers. And we must make sure that when people spend their money, that they have proper worth. One of the greatest things in there, and you won't know it till you feel it, and I think this is going to go through all the place and go viral, is the fact that you can return an electric good. Them brothers just look at you, and I got to trust the electrical item in your box that I buy, and you can put on your store counter, no return, and I just trust you. If anything, I think is going to be a sigh of relief. It's finally being able to go and do that. The clerk give you the wrong part for your car, you done strip it, trusting them, you putting it up and get a little grease on it, and you realize, oh shoot, the screws off. And I told her it was a 1990 this, 90 this. I showed her the serial number. I can't take it back because it get a little oil on it, or is a problem with you? I put a water pump in my car, which should last me almost easily but 5 years plus. 3 months later, the water pump bad off. I done got to pay to take it back out again because the bearings in it bad. Bring it back to you. You tell me I ain't got no recourse. Listen, I want to get paid for my labor too. So what I want to emphasize in this with greater strength is that the level of the enforcement must not only be done for the benefit of our people, must be seen to be done. The consumer must see victories in the court case from the small to the great. They need to see if mama come there and say, listen here, this can of cream is spoiled, and they can see mama could win. You want to see all items that people could feel for a change, that they really getting justice when it comes to their money. With y'all, bro. I work hard for mine. And I want to make sure every dollar counts. With that, Madam President, I support this bill, and I actually commend the drafter for this bill, and I look forward to further evolution of this bill as we progress.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramming. As many?
You don't need to say Ryan. Do you?
I just moved that the sitting of the House extend past 1 o'clock.
It has been moved and seconded that the sitting of the House extend past the 1 p.m. hour. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Barry Griffin.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to add my voice to this very important debate on the Consumer Protection Bill 2023. Madam President, promise made, promise kept. This is where I would like to start, in recognizing that the current administration is serious about the work that we've been called to do. We are serious about protecting the rights of all citizens and residents. And I want to repeat myself, Madam President, all citizens and residents of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Consumer protection bears no party lines or colors, and once this bill is passed, it will serve to protect all consumers in this country. We are working to protect the fundamental rights of those that voted for us and those who didn't. Madam President, I've been following the debate introduced in that other place by our Honorable Prime Minister, and I would like to commend our Prime Minister for leading the charge in this regard. Once we say yay in this place today, Madam President, this compassionate, caring, and people-centered government would have passed yet another hallmark piece of legislation with precise, strict, and exacting clauses that give the legislation depth and teeth. And what do I mean by precise, strict, and exacting clauses? Well, Madam President, the bill imbues the Consumer Commission with the power and authority to vigorously and thoroughly investigate complaints for all Bahamians. The Consumer Commission will also be empowered to restrict and recall goods as deemed necessary. In this bill before the Senate, Madam President, we have clearly defined the obligations by the provider, inclusive of the price of goods or services to be displayed and or disclosed. We also outline the rights of the consumer, and I know that the Bahamian people fully support the notion of a right to a refund and a right to receive a refund in the same manner as payment. Product liability, Madam President, this bill sets out to ensure that consumers are not disadvantaged. Unfair trade practices, no more misleading or deceptive conduct, not under this government. We say enough. We are here to protect the Bahamian consumer. Consumer contract, excluding or restricting liability by contract, we too say no more. Madam President, what I've just listed is simply a summary. My colleague, the Honorable Minister, would have already thoroughly went through the minutiae of the bill, and so as we continue our education campaign on this bill, I invite all consumers to have a read of it. Madam President, we are fully committed to ensuring that businesses, whether micro or macro, are also aware of the provisions of the consumer protection legislation across all sectors through a wider public education platform. I say so conscious of the fact that there are quite a substantial number of consumers who also do not know where to go when they need help stemming from unfair commerce in this country. We must all commit to building and strengthening the current practices in the marketplace. Madam President, again, we, the government, must protect consumers in this country. You would agree with me, Madam President, that the government of the day is the highest spokesperson for the Bahamian people, and therefore we have a distinct obligation to be on high alert to the need consumers in this country and to protect their interests in a fair and equitable way. Madam President, let us think about it for a moment. If our citizens, residents, and even our visitors are sold substandard products, or prices are astronomical, or food items and medicines are unsafe, or consumers are unable to make the best informed decisions, then, Madam President, our consumers in this country will be at a serious disadvantage and their hard-earned money would go to waste. This cannot be fair and is not just. Therefore, this bill seeks to strengthen the arms of the Commission and the consumer, as I have mentioned before, and correspondingly so put business on a path for a fair and balanced dispensation of their goods and services to the intended recipients. Madam President, we are a people-centered government, and for the people, this bill achieves much. We are legislating the right to be informed by the provider of the sale of goods and services with respect to deceitful conduct and deliberate misleading information, the right to be heard via complaint and investigative mediums, the right to choose and an assurance of quality of goods and services by those who offer, and a strong signal to businesses that the voice of the Commission is empowered to stamp out deceptive trade practices and false advertising. Madam President, it is well within the DNA of this government to be loudly heard on the issues that affect Bahamian. Our genetic makeup as a party and as a government obligates us to protect the common interests of the masses in the laws we debate and enact in this place. Madam President, this is the mission of our government, and we will continue to champion the protection of consumer rights in our quest for fair competition. There must be no place for Bahamian consumers to be disadvantaged by scams or pyramid schemes in this country. Madam President, I am sure that every Bahamian welcomes this bill, and with this passage will bring this piece of legislation into the 21st century, in line with places such as our contemporaries like Barbados, ultimately strengthening the way we protect our consumers and, more broadly, the way commerce is executed in this country. In so doing, Madam President, as may have been the case with previous administrations, this government must never be labeled as a talk shop government. Madam President, we are putting our money where our mouths are, and we are putting business on notice. We will not only talk the talk, but we will walk the walk with consumers in this country. We will bring businesses that fail to comply before the Commission and the courts if need be. Accountability must remain in check, and where it does not exist, we fully expect the Commission to do its work, Madam President. I challenge the Commission to ensure that matters before them are adjudicated in a timely manner. We cannot have matters tied up in the system, and while there is a process, we are saying that the intention would be to get through each matter in a decent time frame to ensure the integrity of the Commission and equally the faith of the consumer in the Commission. This will be critical to the relevance and integrity of the Commission and essentially the rule of law in the country. Madam President, we are a nation governed by the rule of law, and therefore, we cannot just come to this place for the sake of debating bills and signing bills into law with no proper checks and balances to ensure that we keep the said laws upheld. I have every confidence that this bill will arm the Commission with much needed readiness to execute and return confidence to all consumers in this country. In short, this bill has teeth, big, sharp teeth, that we hope the Commission uses in the protection of Bahamian consumers. Madam President, I would like to reiterate to all consumers in this country that this bill is equally intended to safeguard and encourage consumers to speak against insufficiency and flaws in trade and commerce, and to understand that the power ultimately lies in their hands. Yes. And for businesses of goods and services to fully appreciate that in order for trade and commerce to take effect and for our economy to grow, we need consumers, and therefore, in strengthening this legislative framework, we expect that they will examine their current business models and applications and bring about the required changes this bill requires. I say to businesses, it cannot only be about profits. The interests of the consumer must also be brought into focus. And to the Commission, With a renewed focus, we expect full accountability. Big business must be held to the same standards as small businesses. It cannot be business as usual. We are here to change the status quo. Madam President, in the political world, change has become a buzzword, a talking point, and less of an action word. I hope that the Bahamian public sees that change and transformation are not just buzzwords for this government. They are action words to us. And we know that all change won't happen overnight. Some change must be steady and incremental, but not this change we talk about today. With global inflation at historic highs, gas prices creeping up, and instability around the world affecting trade and logistics, consumers are looking for a bright light. So we must be creative in the policy levers that we use to bring about financial relief to the Bahamian consumer. And on that note, Madam President, Bahamians can rest assured that I will be an advocate for the Bahamian consumer at every table at which I sit. Madam President, as a commercial attorney, I am familiar with competition law and competition policy. Bahamians at large may be unfamiliar with this area of law and policy because, broadly speaking, it does not exist here in the Bahamas, and that is why I bring it up in this place today. The competitive process is the driving force of consumer and business outcomes in a market economy. In the economic model of perfect competition, businesses seek to undercut each other on price and offer ever more valuable products to attract consumer purchases. This competitive process maximizes economic welfare and leads to lower prices, greater consumer choice, and high levels of innovation. Now, outside this theoretical world, however, markets can fail to achieve outcomes associated with perfect competition. And so the main inspiration of competition policy is to correct or reverse the restraints on the competitive process with the goal of influencing market outcomes closer to those that would be delivered by a perfectly competitive market. Madam President, the heart of any country's competition policy lies in its competition law, law that prohibits certain types of economic behavior that are generally agreed to be anti-competitive in purpose or effect. For example, modern competition laws typically forbid cartels or collusion, monopolies, monopolistic business practices, and mergers that have anti-competitive effect. Nearly all advanced economies in the world have competition laws that are enforced by one or more national or multinational competition agencies. Today, I stand in this place to advocate on behalf of the Bahamian consumer for the Bahamas to use this consumer protection bill as but one stepping stone for a larger, more robust competition law and policy regime in the Bahamas. We need competition policy in this country to ensure that large businesses do not collude on prices, that competitors are actually competitors and are not secret partners working together to monopolize a market. We can all think of countless sectors in our economy that are run by one or a few businesses that dominate. They decide the standards, the practices, the prices, and the evolution of the sector. Competition law and regulation will ensure that their practices are not to the detriment of the Bahamian consumer. Madam President, competition policy is central to a country's prosperity. It drives lower prices, greater consumer choice, and high levels of innovation and economic productivity. Our CARICOM partners have competition policy governed through CARICOM Competition Commission. The UK has one of the strongest competition regimes in the world, managed by the UK Competition and Markets Authority, and the US, for example, regulates competition through the Bureau of Competition in the Federal Trade Commission. We have countless examples of possible benchmarks to use, Madam President. So the question isn't if, the question should be how and when we institute a competition law regime in the Bahamas. Madam President, our government is hard at work restoring credibility and faith in governance. And with the greatest will, Madam President, we cannot do it alone. We need the business community and consumers to come along on this journey with us, each playing their part. Change and transformation are not just buzzwords for us. It is part of the makeup of this government. And so as I take my seat, Madam President, I am pleased to support this consumer protection bill that will bring much help and relief to the Bahamian people and the Bahamian consumer. Change is not coming. Change is here. Madam President, I'm so obliged. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Barry Griffin, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator Honorable Darren Henfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not feeling well, so I'll see. Madam President, I too would like to recognize Reverend Dr. Brenda Harris Pinder and her prayer warriors that were here in the gallery this morning, have since left us. I pray that their spirit of prayers remains among us. The Bible says that the fervent prayers of the righteous availeth much. And in Luke, the good book teaches us that men are to always pray. Right, Rev? Or to always pray. And I believe that prayers moved us from where we were as a people to where we find ourselves today. We were a minor fishing village, and now we are a mini metropolis. You know, disposition to contend with any country of our size. I always say that we are the finest little country in the world, even though we have so much to do. To add to the voices of condolences, which we spoke last week in this place, we lost a good friend from Crown Haven in the person of Clifford Russell. He wasn't famous by any means. He was well educated. He was a family man, a good Anglican, a good community man, a wonderful supporter of the Free National Movement, and he will be greatly missed in Little Abaco, specifically in Crown Haven. Supported former Prime Minister Ingram during his tenure in office, and in 2017 he worked assiduously to help me to be elected. I will miss him. You know, in politics we find that most people believe that we make genuine friends, right? That we just make friends with people to help us in our quest to become elected. But I want to say that is not true. Sometimes you meet genuine friends who become like family. Yeah. Like family to you. And Cliff was one of those persons. And do you know how you know you're genuine ones? You'll know the feeling. Like how and Senator Alcides, Minister Alcides knows, you know you're genuine friends when you lose. Yeah. And every day, following the 2021 elections, almost every day, Cliff would call to inquire about how I'm doing, and to say, you know, you got to get back, you know, you know, that's this kind of spirit that he. I don't know, and that's the kind of spirit. That's the kind of spirit that he had, and so he will be greatly missed, and I extend condolences on behalf of Deidre and I and our family and the wider community of North Abaco to Cliff's family, the Russells, his common law wife Nita and their children on his passing, and to say that we are praying for you and with you as we pray for ourselves in this time of bereavement. Now, I promised that I would not be long, Madam President, and I shall endeavor to do so by God's grace. You know, yeah, you know, apart from, let me just say at the outset, right, that we support this bill. We support every effort put forward by this government, this administration, that seeks to better the lives of the Bahamian people. And we believe that this bill is an effort to do just that. It addresses some issues and some things that I believe needed to be addressed in our communities, in our country. I'm particularly I'm particularly pleased about Section 5, which, let me see if I could find it, which speaks to the functions and powers of the Commission. And 5D, really. 5D really is what I want to draw your attention to, is that the Commission should carry out on its own initiative such as investigations in relation to the availability of goods of any class or description. That's not the one I want. I beg your pardon. I want 5G. Provide information to consumers on their rights as consumers and any other form of consumer education. It's very, very important because the consumer walks into a business establishment and he or she just wants to make a purchase. And sometimes you want to find information that you're looking for concerning the item that you would like to purchase. But to the broader point of this section, this mandates the Commission to go out and educate Bahamians. Yeah. And so, you know, one of my pet peeves is that we should go to the highways and the byways when we make these laws and educate people of their rights and their obligations in accordance with these laws. And so we will be looking to see that the Commission will fulfill this part of its mandate because, Mr. Vice, we believe it is very, very important. When we look at Section 10.3, which we also find noteworthy, it speaks about complaints. Complaints may be made to the Commission by a person who claims to have suffered a disadvantage in relation to the acquisition of goods. So, and it lives on, the complaint lives on even after you're gone, which is very important because most times your complaints or many of your entitlements, if they're not enshrined in law, they die with you. But this says that someone or perhaps the estate can pursue a complaint made by that individual before he or she passed into the other life. And that is very good. A naughty question entered my mind in that if the item which you purchased was the cause of your death, right? You know, yeah, that was a naughty question that entered my mind. But in any event, this is a good clause of law. It's a good piece of law. Say again? Yeah, that's the point. The point I'm making is if you died whilst you had a complaint in train, that would be pursued. That can be pursued in accordance with this bill. It says by a person, but by the estate is all the same. Section 17, 1. Is it Section 17? Yes, it is. It speaks about reports are to be given to the consumer as well as the provider. And this to me, Mr. Vice, provides equity in the way that we do business. Sometimes, you know, one party would have the report and you would have to go to court in order to demand or require the other party to give you the report that pertains to you. And I support your position that these reports ought to be timely. You know, we don't want too many people passing for that section which we spoke to earlier before they get their reports and to see what actions ought to be taken. And so it is good that these reports will be provided simultaneously. I had some issue with the fact that the reports would be given to the minister, other regulators, but that has nothing to do with, as I read this and understand it, that has nothing to do with the Commission being able to do its job in a timely fashion. I hope, Minister, because you are the substantive minister, to deal with these issues. 27.1. 27.1. I took note. Bear with me as I thumb through. Yeah, these laws are quite full of words, right? 27 with warranties, and I applaud the fact, because in most cases, you can only get your warranty lived up to or resulted in your favor if there was a new item. And this requires that even used goods, and the warranty doesn't have to be written, it can be implied, that I would be able to recover my items or have recompense where I had issue, you know. Display prices has always been the law, but always been a law that is ignored. That's Section 30. Sometimes you go into a place of business and you ask them, what's the price of this item? That ought not be. The law requires that we display the prices of the item as well as the VAT that affixes or attaches to that particular item. And many times that is not the case. And so Bahamians out there, you have a right to have the price of the item that you're interested in displayed, so that you don't have to be guessing if you got $20 in your pocket whether or not that $20 could cover your bill. You know, I also commend Section 36, the right to receive a refund in the same manner as payment. You know, a lot of times you make a payment on something, and people say to you, the merchant says to you, look, you know, I'm not going to give you the money back, but I give you a credit toward another purchase. I don't want a credit from you. I want my money back, or however I deposited my funds with you, I want that back. And this requires that the consumer is refunded in the same manner in which he or she made the payment for the goods that they asked for. One more I would like to look at is Section 52. That's at page 26 of the bill. You know, Section 48 is interesting as well, because you have these telemarketers and people who harass you. Most of them come on the phone nowadays and they speak a language you don't understand, right? And they are harassing you about, because you may have searched their site, their website, and left some information. They're harassing you. My Grammy say, hi, harassing you about purchasing from them, you know, this thing that you looked at. President. Yeah. Okay. And so that was a smooth transition. Smooth transition of power. That's what we're known for in the Bahamas. Smooth transition of power. You know? Yes, I will. Yes, I will. And there was also, you know, Section 52. Very, very interesting. Pyramid selling, pyramid schemes, and Ponzi schemes, and the like. I remember as a young Marine, freshly married, you know, young wife and a little boy. I only had one at a time, right? There was a fellow who had this scheme. It had to have been a scheme, where he said that he had come into all this millions and millions of dollars. You've been there too. You've been there too, right? And so he said all you had to do was go and get your bills, and everybody we inundated the banks. You know, it was in Grand Bahamas as well. We inundated the banks, and we gone and got all of our mortgages and our debt, and we would take it to him. But most people had to pay a fee. I think the fee was $60, right? The fee was in the region of $45 or $60. But he had pity on us, young Marines. So we went there in a group. Madam President, was but 4 or 5 of us, we said, boy, we can get it, right? So we go down to the townhouse, hotel, and restaurant, and everybody walking in with their bundles, right? And we say to him, you know, we come to get our payment as well. And the fella looked at us and must have had pity. God must have moved him. He said, no, you're all serving the country. He said we won't charge you all. he said take them Marines. He said take their stuff and put it there, you know, and we'll sort them out. sort them out as we go. So he had pity on us. But Ponzi schemes are very cruel and very difficult because only the people at the front of the scam, in most cases, most instances, the people at the front of the scheme, the pyramid schemes, right? That's why they call it pyramid. They start here and they go. Yeah, Brandy Madoff is historical in that regard, right? And of the promise that you're going to get, you're going to reap from your investment. And so we on this side, we commend this bill. We think it's a good piece of legislation. Like every other piece of legislation that has to be worked on and the process of going through it, when you run into snags, because people will find, as Senator Raming indicated, people will find ways and means. You can time me now. People will find ways and means of kind of getting around the law. So, but before I take my seat as an opposition senator, allow me to say this. Apart from having a government that has very little or few ideas as to how or refuses to do more, to move people from the disposition that they find themselves in, these bills are all good. And there's a point I made last week, right? How does it help? How does it help the mother who's trying to go into the food store right now and purchase food, and Christmas coming, and I want to jump through this, right? So I won't be slavish to it. Christmas coming, and we hear Super Value. We hear Super Value saying that food prices will remain at inflationary levels, despite any reductions in the production of these items. We hear that, you know, the central bank reported that end of June to the end of June 2023, I think it was, inflation was at 11% on food and beverages. So the cost of living in the Bahamas is really, really high. The cost of living all across the world has risen because Mr. Roberts said in that same report, he went to a food store in America, I think it was Pittsburgh that he said he was in, and some of the items that he saw on the shelves were just exorbitantly high, higher than the prices that we see in some instances in the Bahamas. And so what you have done as a government is you've done things like inflation. And the inflation that we see now is a residual effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, which impacted the supply chain and shipping costs. It is resultant of the Russian-Ukraine conflict, which is ongoing. And now, thank God, that conflict didn't spread all across Europe, but it was able to be kept isolated where it is in Ukraine for now, right, and Russia. And now we have this terrorist group Hamas, which has attacked Israel, and God knows how that is going to impact the cost of fuel, because that is a more volatile, if you were, issue in the Arabic states, because this is now a religious thing, you know, Muslim against Jews. And if we know how the world works, how the world functions, you have all of those oil-rich countries in there that will likely enter the war if we don't get it under control, if the world doesn't get it under control in short order. Enter the war to cause more disruption in the fuel economy. And God knows we can use less disruption in the fuel economy as it is. You know, so the world's supply chain and fuel costs, all of that has to do with driving the inflationary cost of food and fuel, which we have to suffer the cost of. And rightly, government says it all the time, that these are external events, exogenous events, that impact us locally or in our communities that we have very little control over. But the things that we do have control over, we have to do more to address. And in all fairness, the government sought to raise the minimum wage. I thought I'd hear some of you say that the other day, but my friend didn't speak. You increase some pensions for the elderly and some public servants. You did that. You lowered some duties on some items. You introduced, and I told you didn't lower what, man. You lower what, but then you go on and put it right back on the bread basket, which we had 0 rated. And we keep telling you to move it, right? I on a good wicket, leave me alone. You go on and put it right back on the bread basket. Yes, Madam President, which we begged you. Bread basket, you put it on the bread basket items, you put it on medicine, you put it on medical insurance, you put it on female items, on baby items, among other things. And so all of the effort that you made to help improve the conditions of Bahamians, you somewhat nullified it in that one fell swoop. And you know, Bahamians were very disappointed, Madam President. I heard some say, boy, we really, and my colleague here alluded to it. I was at Senate, as I said last week, when Bishop Lachboyd said you did a good thing. You said that you would decrease VAT, you did. But then you go on and put it right back on the food items, right? On the bread basket items. And so we welcome this bill, and we do, as we do all legislation intended to help Bahamians in their daily lives. You know, things are tough. Things are tough out there, right? Some of us are able to meet our obligations on a timely and in a timely fashion. But when moving the bill in the other place, the Prime Minister asserted that pursuant to the famous blueprint for change, the bill is expected to create a fairer, a more prosperous society. And then when I read what the PM said, I have it right here. I read what he said as was posted on the government website. He tended to throw a couple of blows at the merchants. And I don't want to have to go to it, but some blows were thrown, right? Some blows were thrown, but you know, no man, I right now I feel good in my spirit, man. I believe the prayers of the righteous avail it much, man. You know, but you know, we all in this together. We all in this together, and then for me to hear that there was limited. You weren't here when Senator Raming made the statement that he saw some people from Chamber of Commerce who said that there was no. We got to do better with consultation. We can't. I mean, you know, we expect them to cooperate and to be with us. You do? Yeah, we do. We do. We want, all of us, I believe, want the best for our country, and I think all of us have a role to play. But you all got to let this boogeyman of this UBP die, man. The UBP ain't around no more. They finished, and everybody just keep throwing these hard-bones. Everybody keep trying these. You can't drive looking in the rearview mirror, man. You got to drive. You got to hold the wheel. You got to take the wheel. There's a poem, you know, tender grasp the nettle. It stings you, right? But firmly grip it, and you subdue it, right? I'm butchering that poem right now, Madam President. But you see the point I made. Drive, man. You in the driver's seat, man. Drive and take it as it is. When you hit them bumps in the road and them curves that you got to negotiate them, man. But stay on the road. Stay on the road what the prosperity that the Bahamian people expect from you when they voted you into office. Protect Bahamians from unfair and dishonest practices. I all for that. But I doubt that this bill will protect Bahamians from high light bills. How will it do that? From increasing food bills. Right? We talking about, you all represent people, man. Don't let no one hear you say that. I hope they're listening to you in Long Island. I hope they're not listening to you in Long Island. When you want to represent people, they want to hear, you know. I suffered from that because as a member of the cabinet, you can't say certain things, right? You can't say how you fighting and you kicking and you screaming, Madam President. So when you in there, you come out, people say, oh, you're fighting for me. They want you to fight for them, man. They want you to fight for them. And politics in Bahamas, I believe, is changing. Don't always assume these party lines, especially if you're on the back bench. because that's where you can be. And a backbench, if you ever get there, right? And a backbench should be strong. A backbench should help to hold the government to account. That's why you find nowadays that backbenches are so small, because prime ministers nowadays they put everybody in the cabinet somehow so they can have, zip your mouth, man. You can't. These are the realities which we face. These are realities. You can't. We have increasing fuel bills. Bahamians need, and I just said, it sounds like you're speaking out of two sides of your mouth, because I said that there's inflation, but look at creative means. Other creative means of trying to save some money. Can't hire millions and millions of dollars worth of consultants, man. Millions and millions of dollars worth of consultants, and we can't see what they're doing. What results we getting from it. We can't see. We can't see, man. But you were elected to do better. That's the point I'm making. Or you can suffer the same consequences we suffered. You're well on your way. How you going to rehire retirees in the public service and pay them a pension? And then consumers suffer the impact of all the other high prices. You rehire a public servant and a PS, I think they get something like 80% of their pay in pension. They get something like 80% of their pay in pension. And now you're getting a full pension, 80%. Incredible, man. I should have been a PS. I should not have gone into politics or the defense force. I should have gone into public service. I should have gone into public service and tried to be a PS man. And then what that does to a minister, and I know you can't say, but I know you don't agree with this. No, I know. I have a good feeling. You can't say. Don't say nothing. Let me speak for you. let me speak for you. What that does is that denigrates the morale of those in the public service, who looking to be promoted at some point. When they can ever be promoted, man? No, I trying to point out some things to you that you could do to help the Bahamian people. That you could do to help the Bahamian people. And so we have a harm and taking, man. There's something we used to do called a school holiday. You think we could do a holiday for harm and taking? Because Bahamians need their harm and taking, Madam President. Every Bahamian household that I know, harm and taking is essential in those households around the holidays. And you could, from Christmas to straight through the New Year's, you can find in a Bahamian household a nice piece of ham, a nice piece of turkey, and a fruit cake or a rum cake that you could go and peck at. Long Island, you should have some mutton someplace, some good mutton. I want some of that from Long Island. And so there are things that we need to do. And so I want to say this before I take my seat. Let's consider, and we'll tell you this until you do it, or until we come into office and do it. But it has to be done. Boy, I know, 3 years ain't that long. One time ago it was 5. now it's down to 2. Now it's down to 2. And you know something else Mr. Roberts said? He said that the cost of the bad products for you, your health, he called corned beef bad, but I can't agree with him. I can't. It is, right? Because all of the oil is packed and everything, but you can't take my fire engine, my corned beef and white rice, with a little bit of corn or coleslaw on the side. Man, you can't take that from me, right? So that one, he said oils. These are the things that are lowering in cost, but the things that are healthy for you, fruits and vegetables, these are the things that are increasing in cost. And I say, we have to consider each of us, because government needs revenue, and in the Bahamas we raise revenue through these minor taxes. Like some people wouldn't call them minor, because you pay your duty on the goods that you import, and you pay VAT on your goods and services, right? But we should seriously consider zero-rating healthy food products, because we spend a hell of a lot of money on health care in the Bahamas. And my brother spoke about diabetes, and you can add on to that hypertension and all of the rest of these I forget what kind of sicknesses, non-communicable diseases that they call them, and obesity. Obesity is it's crazy. right? In our country, we are extremely obese. You know, so Minister, I know it's not yours to do completely, but maybe your colleagues in the cabinet will hear me. Let's look at possibly zero rating the healthy food, right? We could do this, and lower the food bills for Bahamians. We could do it, right? And have less high blood, have less diabetes, less people on dialysis, less people having to take that medication every morning, right? In the process. And with that, Madam President, I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and I want to thank all senators for their contributions. I think there's unanimous support for the bill, and the points that were made are taken. As I said in my presentation, Madam President, we acknowledge inflation is a serious concern for Bahamians. And as a matter of fact, we are doing a deep dive right now into the entire supply chain and to see where, through government policy, we can make an impact on some of the costs that we are experiencing. We recognize, we know a lot of the increases are imported, but that does not mean we throw up our hands and do nothing. I want to thank all senators for supporting the bill. The bill is a work in progress. We look forward to working with the business community and the commission in terms of implementing the bill. We don't think it's extremely onerous. As I said, we think it promotes good business practices. I want to take this time to thank all members of the commission, the staff, past and present, for the work that they have done in bringing us to this point. And we want to just be able to work together to continue to improve consumer protection as we move to implement this bill. Madam President, I think the points, there was wide support for the bill. The points are all taken in the spirit in which they were given, and so without further ado, Madam President, I move for a second reading and committal of the bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Act 2006. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be a second time and committed. A bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Commission Act 2007. Now for the question. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Act 2006.
For the second reading, Committee of the Whole.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do resolve itself into a committee of the whole with the Vice President in the chair.
Is there a second now? It's been moved and seconded that it will now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. The Senate will now resolve itself into Committee of the Whole with the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair.
Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to a bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Act 2006, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a
Second.
seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many in favor say aye. Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 2 to 68 be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 68 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 to 68 of the bill are agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the first and second schedules of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the first and second schedules of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The schedules, the first and second schedules of the bill are agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be now agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the President do now take the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the President do now take the chair. As many are in favor say aye. Aye. Those who oppose say nay. The motion is carried. Madam President will now take the chair. Madam President, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined the bill, making no amendments thereto.
Honorable members, the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has examined the bill, having made no amendments thereto. Third reading and passing of bills.
Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Act 2006.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to make provision for the greater protection of consumers, the continuation of a Consumer Protection Commission, and for the functions and powers of that commission and related matters, and to repeal and replace the Consumer Protection Act 2006.
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Consumer Protection Act 2023. Consideration of House amendments, resolutions, appointment of select committees. Order the following senators be a committee of privilege: Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder, Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock, Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramey. Order the following senators be a committee of the library: Senator the Honorable Eurecia Hepburn Forbes, Senator the Honorable James Roll Turner, Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour. Order the following senators be a committee of statutory instruments: Senator the Honorable Ronald Duncombe, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell, Senator the Honorable Michaela Barnett Ellis. Order the following senators be a committee for broadcasting. Senator the Honorable Tyrell Young, Senator the Honorable Barry Griffin, Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour. Order the following senators be a Senate Rules and Business Committee. Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides, Senator the Honorable Barry Griffin, Senator the Honorable Derek Handfield. Interparliamentary Union, Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour. United Nations Human Rights Committee, Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder and Senator the Honorable Michaela Barnett Ellis. Senator the Honorable Dr. Eresia Hepburn Forbes for the United Nations Human Rights Committee. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
Madam President, I would like to renew all notices in the name of the government.
Orders for clerk. Adjournment.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die.
Is there a seconder? It has moved and seconded that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Madam President, I move that the Senate now adjourn.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. The Senate stands adjourned sine die.